The message was supposed to be a mistake. 2 words sent at midnight after too much wine to a man who could ruin her with a single phone call, or worse. Come get me. Evelyn Carter never imagined her untouchable boss would actually show up. But when Dominic Russo appeared in that dimly lit bar, his dark eyes burning with something she'd never seen before, everything shattered. 1 year of silence, one reckless text, one night that would destroy every careful boundary she'd built between them. Watch until the end, hit like, and comment your city so I can see how far this story travels. Evelyn Carter had perfected the art of being invisible. Not literally, of course. She existed, breathed, moved, spoke when necessary. But she'd learned to occupy space without demanding attention, to be essential without being noticed. In the year she'd worked as Dominic Russo's personal assistant, she'd become a ghost who ran his entire world from behind a polished desk and a carefully neutral expression. It was survival. It was safety. It was the only way she could work for a man like him without completely losing herself. The Russo Industries offices occupied the top 12 floors of a glass tower in downtown Chicago, and Dominic's personal suite sat at the very peak, naturally. Everything about Dominic Russo existed at the top. Top floor, top tier. Top of every dangerous food chain that mattered in this city, though most people were smart enough not to acknowledge that last part out loud. Evelyn had been smart too. For 11 months and 23 days, she'd been so damn smart. She arrived at 7:15 every morning, 30 minutes before Dominic, and prepared his office like a stage before the lead actor's entrance. Coffee, black, no sugar, specific temperature, on his desk. Daily briefing folder arranged with color-coded tabs. Windows adjusted to filter the morning light exactly how he preferred. Fresh flowers in the corner vase, never roses, always something understated. His dry cleaning hung in the private closet, his schedule memorized down to the minute. She knew his preferences better than he did. Knew he rubbed his left temple when a headache started. Knew he took calls from his brother Marco without hesitation, but let calls from his Uncle Sal go to voicemail 3 times before answering. Knew he squared his cufflinks precisely when he was about to deliver bad news. She knew everything, and she felt everything, and that was the problem she couldn't solve. Morning, Evelyn. His voice cut through her thoughts as he walked in at 7:45, exactly on time, wearing a charcoal suit that probably cost more than her monthly rent. Dominic Russo was not a classically handsome man. His features were too sharp, too severe, his presence too intense for comfortable attraction. But he was magnetic in the way dangerous things often are. Dark hair always perfectly styled, dark eyes that missed nothing, a jaw that looked carved from stone, and a mouth that rarely smiled but could destroy someone with a single cutting word. He was 34, controlled, brilliant, and completely off limits in every possible way. "Good morning, Mr. Russo." She handed him the briefing folder without looking directly at him, a skill she'd mastered. "Your 8 o'clock with the Singapore investors is confirmed. The contracts are ready for your review. Your brother called twice already. Marco can wait." He took the folder, fingers brushing hers for half a second. She pretended not to notice. "The Castellano meeting, did they accept the terms?" "They're countering. I have 3 different versions of their proposal, all insufficient in my opinion." His mouth twitched, almost a smile. "Your opinion? You pay me to have one." "I pay you to run my life. Having opinions is extra." He moved to his desk, flipping through the folder. "Which version is least insulting?" "The second one. Still insulting, but marginally less." This time he did smile, quick and sharp. "Send it back. Tell them we'll consider it when they stop wasting my time." "Diplomatically?" "You know how I work." She did. God, she did. The morning proceeded like every other, controlled chaos that appeared effortless because Evelyn made it so. She fielded 17 calls before noon, rescheduled 2 meetings, handled a crisis with a delayed shipment that had Dominic's warehouse manager nearly in tears, ordered lunch from the Italian place Dominic liked but never admitted to liking, and somehow found time to proofread a 60-page contract for errors the legal team had missed. She was good at her job. Exceptional, actually. Dominic had told her so once. In that clipped way he delivered rare compliments, and she'd held on to those words for weeks like they meant something beyond professional acknowledgement. That was the other problem. Everything he said, every moment of his attention, she collected like precious stones and examined later in private, searching for meaning that wasn't there. Evelyn. She looked up from her desk in the outer office. Dominic stood in his doorway, jacket off, sleeves rolled to his elbows. It was 3 in the afternoon, which meant he'd been working for 7 hours straight with only the lunch she'd forced on him. Yes? The Peterson file. Where is it? Bottom drawer, left side, red folder, behind the Anderson documents. He stared at her. How do you do that? Do what? Know where everything is. Remember everything. It's my job. It's unnerving. She almost smiled. You've mentioned that before. He disappeared back into his office without another word, and she returned to her computer, ignoring the way her pulse had kicked up just from 30 seconds of his attention. Pathetic. She was pathetic. Her phone buzzed. A text from Shay, her best friend and the only person who knew the full extent of her problem. Shay. Dinner tonight? You need to get out of that office before you grow roots. Evelyn. Can't. Too much work. Shay. Bullshit. You're avoiding real life again. Evelyn. Real life is overrated. Shay. So is pining after your emotionally unavailable boss. 7 p.m. Romanos. Don't make me drag you out. Evelyn sighed and pocketed her phone. Shay wasn't wrong, but she also didn't understand. You couldn't just stop feeling something because it was inconvenient or impossible. Evelyn had tried. For 11 months and 23 days, she'd tried. The rest of the afternoon blurred past. More calls, more emails. A tense video conference with Tokyo that Dominic handled in flawless Japanese, which of course he spoke fluently because he spoke 5 languages and excelled at everything he touched. By 6 o'clock, the office had emptied except for them. Go home, Evelyn. She glanced up. Dominic stood by her desk again, jacket back on, briefcase in hand. He looked tired, actually tired, which was rare. The kind of tired that came from carrying weight no one else could see. I have 3 more things to finish. They can wait. You need the Morrison report for tomorrow morning. Then I'll read it tomorrow afternoon. Go home. His voice softened slightly. You work too much. The irony of hearing that from him almost made her laugh. So do you. I have reasons. So do I. Something flickered in his expression. Curiosity, maybe concern. What reasons? You? You're the reason. Because if I'm here, I'm useful. And if I'm useful, you need me. And if you need me, I get to be close to you. And that's pathetic, but it's all I have. Rent, she said instead. Student loans, the usual. He studied her for a long moment, and she felt the weight of his attention like a physical thing. Then he nodded. Tomorrow's Friday. Leave at 5. That's not a request. Yes, Mr. Russo. He left, and she sat in the quiet office, surrounded by the evidence of a life she'd built around someone who barely saw her as a person. Just an assistant. Just a tool. Just invisible. She finished the Morrison report anyway. Romano's was crowded and loud, exactly the kind of place Evelyn usually avoided. But Shay had dragged her there with the determination of someone who'd decided her best friend needed saving from herself. You look exhausted, Shay said, sliding a glass of wine across the table. Red, expensive, probably beyond what they should be spending on a Thursday night. I'm fine. You're running yourself into the ground for a man who doesn't even notice you exist. Evelyn flinched. That's not... It is. Shay's voice softened. Ev, I love you, but this has to stop. You can't keep living like this. Like what? Like you're waiting for him to suddenly realize you're the answer to all his problems. He's your boss. She lowered her voice. He's not exactly a safe bet, even if he did notice you. Everyone knew about the Russos. You didn't live in Chicago without hearing whispers. Old family, old money, old connections to things that happened in shadows and back rooms. Dominic ran legitimate businesses, sure, but his last name carried weight that had nothing to do with corporate success. I know what he is, Evelyn said quietly. Then why are you doing this to yourself? I'm not doing anything. I'm just existing, working. It's fine. It's not fine. You're in love with him. The words hung in the air between them, true and terrible. Evelyn took a long drink of wine instead of answering. You need to either tell him or move on, Shay continued. Find another job. Go on a date. Do something other than waste your life on someone who doesn't see you. He sees me. As an assistant. That's enough. It's not, and you know it. Shay reached across the table, gripping her hand. You deserve more than scraps of attention from a man who'll never give you what you need. You deserve someone who looks at you and can't look away. Evelyn's throat tightened. That's not how the world works. It could be, if you let it. They talked about other things after that. Shay's disaster of a dating life, her sister's upcoming wedding, a vacation they should take but wouldn't. The wine kept flowing, and somewhere around the third glass, Evelyn felt the careful control she maintained start to slip. What if I just told him, she said suddenly. Shay's eyes widened. Told him what? What if I just said it? What's the worst that could happen? He could fire you. He could laugh at you. He could make your life hell. Or he could feel the same way. What if he does? What if I've been so busy hiding that I missed all the signs? She was drunk, definitely drunk. But beneath the wine-warm haze, something else pushed at her, something reckless and desperate that had been building for 11 months and 23 days. Shay studied her carefully. You really think he might feel the same way? I don't know, maybe. Sometimes I catch him looking at me, and it's not how you look at an assistant. It's something else. She laughed, shaky. Or I'm delusional. Probably that. If you're going to do something stupid, do it drunk so you have an excuse. That's terrible advice. I know, Shay grinned. But you're going to do it anyway, aren't it? Evelyn pulled out her phone before she could think better of it. Dominic's contact information glowed on the screen. Professional, distant, completely inappropriate to text at 9:30 on a Thursday night for anything other than an emergency. Her thumbs hovered over the keyboard. What are you going to say? Shay whispered. I don't know. Something. Anything. I can't keep living like this. The wine made everything feel possible. Made her forget all the reasons this was a catastrophic idea. Made her believe, just for a moment, that maybe, he'd been hiding too. She typed 2 words, stared at them, nearly deleted them. Then, before courage could abandon her completely, she hit send. Come get me. The message delivered with a soft whoosh. Final. Irreversible. Possibly life-destroying. Oh my God, Shay breathed. You actually did it. Evelyn locked her phone and set it face down on the table, heart hammering. He won't answer. He'll ignore it. Tomorrow I'll apologize and blame the wine, and we'll never speak of it again. And if he does answer, he won't. But her phone buzzed 30 seconds later. She grabbed it with shaking hands. 1 word glowed on the screen. Where? The world tilted. Shay made a sound somewhere between a gasp and a laugh. Evelyn stared at the message, convinced she was hallucinating. He answered, Shay said unnecessarily. He answered. So what now? Evelyn's fingers moved before her brain caught up. Romano's. Corner booth. 3 dots appeared immediately. Then, stay there. Holy shit, Shay whispered. He's coming. He's actually coming. What are you going to say to him? I have no idea. What are you going to do? I don't know. This is insane. Ev, you realize this changes everything, right? Everything. She did. God help her, she did. 20 minutes passed like 20 hours. The wine had gone from warm confidence to cold panic in her bloodstream. What had she done? What was she thinking? This was Dominic Russo, her boss, her untouchable, dangerous, completely inappropriate boss, and she'd just summoned him to a bar like they were friends, like this was normal, like she had any right to his attention outside of office hours. Maybe I should leave, she said suddenly, before he gets here. I'll say I had an emergency, food poisoning, family crisis. You're not running. Shay? No, you started this. You're finishing it. Shay squeezed her hand. And I'm leaving. What? No. This is between you and him. Whatever happens, you don't need an audience. She stood, grabbing her purse. Text me later, or tomorrow, or whenever you resurface from whatever this becomes. I can't do this alone. Yes, you can. You're braver than you think. Shay kissed her forehead. Good luck. Then she was gone, and Evelyn sat alone in the booth, watching the door like a condemned woman watching the executioner approach. When Dominic walked in, the entire restaurant seemed to pause. He always had that effect, that unconscious command of space, that intensity that made people step aside without realizing it. He wore the same suit from earlier, slightly rumpled now, tie loosened. His eyes scanned the room and locked on her immediately, and the look on his face was nothing she'd ever seen before. Not anger, not confusion, something darker, something that made her breath catch. He crossed to her booth in long strides, and suddenly he was there, standing over her, and she couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't do anything but stare up at him. "You texted me," he said quietly. "I did." "You've never texted me before, not once in over a year." "I know." "So why tonight?" He slid into the booth across from her, movements controlled but tension radiating from every line of his body. "What's wrong? Are you in trouble?" The concern in his voice nearly undid her.
"No, I'm fine." "Then why am I here, Evelyn?" Her name in his mouth, low and rough, made something inside her crack open. The wine, the exhaustion, the 11 months and 23 days of hiding, it all collapsed at once. "Because I couldn't do it anymore," she said. "Do what?" "Pretend." The word came out broken. "Pretend I don't feel anything. Pretend you're just my boss. Pretend that being near you doesn't—" She stopped, pressed her hands to her face. "God, I'm drunk. Forget this.
"Forget I said anything." Silence. Terrible, stretching silence. Then his hand wrapped around her wrist, pulling her hands away from her face, forcing her to look at him. His grip was gentle but absolute. "Don't," he said roughly. "Don't hide from me. Not now." "Dominic, how long?" She blinked. "What?" "How long have you felt this way?" The question hung between them, dangerous and impossible. She should lie, should deflect, should protect herself from the inevitable rejection. But she was so tired of hiding. "Since the beginning," she whispered. "Since the first week. Maybe the first day. I don't know. It just happened." His jaw tightened. His grip on her wrist shifted, thumb pressing against her racing pulse. "And you never said anything. You're my boss." What was I supposed to say? The truth. The truth would have ruined everything. "You think I didn't know?" His voice dropped lower, almost angry. "You think I haven't noticed every time you look away when I get too close? Every time you leave the room when I'm on the phone with someone personal? Every time you go absolutely still when I say your name?" Her heart stopped. What? "I've been watching you watch me for months, Evelyn, wondering if I was imagining it, wondering if I was projecting my own—" He stopped, released her wrist, ran a hand through his hair. "Christ. Your own what?" she breathed. He looked at her then, really looked at her, and she saw it. The thing she'd convinced herself was impossible. The same hunger, the same desperate wanting, the same fear of wanting it. "I can't do this," he said roughly. "You work for me. There are rules, boundaries, lines that can't be crossed." "Then why did you come?" "Because you asked me to." "Because when you sent that message, I was in a meeting with 6 people and I walked out without explanation because the only thing I could think was that you needed me." His voice turned harsh. "Do you understand what that means? What you've done?" "No," she whispered. "Tell me." "It means I'm compromised. It means I've been compromised for months. It means every decision I make about you, every interaction we have, is tainted by the fact that I want—" He stopped again, jaw working. "Want what?" "You." The word came out like a confession. "I want you. And I can't. So I've buried it, ignored it, pretended the only thing I felt when you walked into my office every morning was professional appreciation." The booth felt too small, the air too thin. Evelyn couldn't process what she was hearing, couldn't reconcile it with the reality she'd built. "You want me," she repeated numbly. "Of course I want you. How could I not?" He leaned forward, voice low and intense. "You're brilliant. You anticipate my needs before I have them. You handle chaos like it's nothing. You see through every game and manipulation that walks through my door. You're—" He stopped, laughed bitterly. "You're the best part of my day, and that terrifies me." "Why?" "Because I can't have you.
Because you deserve better than whatever I could offer. Because my life is, he gestured vaguely, complicated, dangerous, not something I can ask you to step into. What if I want to? You don't know what you're saying. Yes, I do. She reached across the table, hand shaking, and touched his face. He went absolutely still. I know exactly what I'm saying. I know who you are, what you are, and I'm still here. His hand came up, covering hers, pressing her palm against his jaw. His eyes closed briefly. This is a mistake. Probably. It'll ruin everything. Maybe. I might hurt you. You already have. Every day you don't see me. Every moment you treat me like I'm just... Her voice cracked. At least this way, if you hurt me, it'll mean something. He opened his eyes, and the look in them stole her breath. If we do this, if we cross this line, there's no going back. I don't want to go back. Evelyn, kiss me. The words came out desperate. Please, I need to know this is real. For one horrible moment, she thought he'd refuse, thought he'd pull away, stand up, walk out, and leave her shattered in this booth with nothing but humiliation and regret. Then he moved. His hand slid into her hair, tilting her head back, and his mouth found hers with a hunger that made her gasp. The kiss wasn't gentle or tentative. It was desperate and claiming, and months of restrained desire finally breaking free. She kissed him back just as fiercely, fingers curling into his jacket, pulling him closer even though the table separated them. He tasted like coffee and control and something darker she couldn't name. His other hand cupped her jaw, thumb stroking her cheek, and the tenderness of that gesture against the intensity of the kiss made her eyes burn. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, he pressed his forehead to hers. We can't do this here, he said roughly. Then where? My place. Yours. Anywhere that isn't... He gestured at the restaurant around them, suddenly aware they had an audience. Several people were definitely staring. Evelyn laughed, shaky and breathless. Your place. You're sure? I've never been more sure of anything. He pulled back, studied her face like he was memorizing it. Then he stood, threw cash on the table, way too much, and held out his hand. She took it. His car was a sleek black Audi that probably cost more than she'd earned in 5 years. He opened her door without a word, closed it carefully, then got in the driver's side and started the engine. Neither of them spoke as he pulled into traffic. The silence wasn't uncomfortable. It was charged. Electric. Full of everything they weren't saying. His hand found hers across the console, threading their fingers together, and she stared at their joined hands like they belonged to someone else. This was real. This was happening. I don't do this, he said quietly, eyes on the road. Get involved with people I work with. People in my life. It's a rule. So why break it now? Because you broke me first. He glanced at her, quick and intense. 11 months, Evelyn. I've wanted you for 11 months, and I've never wanted anyone the way I want you. Her chest tightened. What happens tomorrow? I don't know. We figure it out. And work? We keep it separate, professional. No one can know, not yet. Not until we understand what this is. What if it's nothing? She whispered. What if this is just, it's not nothing? His grip on her hand tightened. I wouldn't risk everything for nothing. His apartment was in a high-rise overlooking the lake, all glass and steel and expensive minimalism. She'd been here before, dropping off files, picking up documents, but never at night, never alone, never while his hand rested on her lower back as he guided her inside. The door closed behind them, and suddenly they were kissing again, harder this time, more desperate. He backed her against the wall, hands framing her face, and she clutched his shoulders like he was the only solid thing in a tilting world. Tell me to stop, he murmured against her mouth. No. Evelyn, don't stop. Don't think. Just... She pulled him closer, pouring 11 months of wanting into the kiss. I need this. I need you. He groaned, a rough sound that vibrated through her, and then he was lifting her, carrying her through the apartment to his bedroom. The city glittered beyond floor-to-ceiling windows, but she only saw him, his dark eyes, his fierce expression, the way he looked at her like she was something precious and dangerous at once.
He set her down beside the bed, hands gentle now, almost reverent. We should talk about this. We've talked enough. I need you to understand what you're getting into, who I am, what my life. She kissed him quiet. Tomorrow. We'll talk tomorrow. Tonight, just let me have this. Something in his expression softened. You've always had this. You just didn't know it. Then he was kissing her again, and talking stopped mattering. There was only touch and breath, and the gradual shedding of barriers, clothing and fear and the careful distance they'd maintained for so long. He was gentle and fierce by turns, murmuring her name like a prayer, mapping her body like he was memorizing every detail. And she let herself feel everything, the slide of his skin against hers, the roughness of his voice in her ear, the way he trembled when she touched him. This was real. He was real. And for one perfect night, she let herself believe that maybe, just maybe, invisible girls sometimes got noticed after all. Afterward, they lay tangled together, her head on his chest, his fingers tracing absent patterns on her shoulder. The city hummed beyond the windows. Neither of them spoke. Finally, he broke the silence. What happens now? She lifted her head, met his eyes. Now we figure out how to do this without destroying everything we've built. Can we? I don't know, but I want to try. He pulled her closer, pressed a kiss to her forehead. Then we'll try. It wasn't a promise. It wasn't even a plan. But it was something. A beginning, fragile and uncertain and absolutely terrifying. And as Evelyn drifted toward sleep in Dominic Russo's arms, she realized she'd been wrong about one thing. She wasn't invisible anymore. Morning came too fast and too bright. Evelyn woke disoriented, wrapped in sheets that cost more than her couch, in a bed that wasn't hers, with sunlight pouring through windows that overlooked a city she barely recognized from this height. For 3 confused seconds, she didn't remember where she was. Then she felt the weight of an arm across her waist, and everything came crashing back. Dominic. She'd slept with Dominic Russo, her boss, the man she'd been hiding feelings for since the day she started working for him, the man whose coffee order she knew better than her own, whose schedule she managed down to the minute, whose life she'd organized from a careful, professional distance for 11 months and 23 days. That distance was gone now. Obliterated. She'd crossed every line that existed, and there was no uncrossing it. His arm tightened slightly, pulling her closer even in sleep, and despite the panic starting to claw at her throat, she let herself have one more moment. Just one. To feel the warmth of his body against hers, the steady rise and fall of his breathing, the absolutely surreal reality that Dominic Russo was holding her like she mattered. Then his phone buzzed on the nightstand, shattering the moment. He stirred, groaned quietly, and she felt him wake. The subtle shift from sleep to awareness, the way his body tensed slightly as he remembered what had happened. His arm didn't move from her waist. What time is it? His voice was rough with sleep, deeper than usual. She craned her neck to see the clock. 6:45. Christ. He didn't sound upset, just resigned. We have to be at the office in an hour and 15 minutes. The word we shouldn't have made her chest tighten the way it did. They always went to the office. That was the job. But now it meant something different, arriving separately, pretending nothing had changed, hiding this thing between them that felt too big to contain. Dominic. Don't. He shifted, propping himself up on one elbow to look down at her. His hair was a mess, face unshaven, eyes still heavy with sleep. He looked human in a way she'd never seen before, and it made her ache. Don't panic, not yet. I'm not panicking. Yes, you are, I can feel it. His hand moved to her face, thumb tracing her cheekbone. We knew this would be complicated. Complicated is an understatement. Probably a ghost of a smile. But we're going to figure it out. How? Carefully. He kissed her forehead, then pulled back, sitting up. The sheet pooled at his waist, and she tried not to stare at the lean muscle of his back, the dark ink of a tattoo she'd never known existed, curving over his shoulder blade. At work, nothing changes. We're professional, distant, exactly what we've always been. And outside of work, we take it slow, figure out what this is without the entire company watching. He stood, completely unself-conscious about his nakedness, and grabbed his phone. No one can know. Not yet. The words stung more than they should have. Are you ashamed of this? He turned, expression sharp. No. But my life isn't simple, Evelyn. People watch me. People look for weaknesses. And if they think you're... He stopped, jaw tight. I won't let you become a target because of me. She sat up, clutching the sheet to her chest. A target for what? Later. We'll talk about all of it later. He moved toward the bathroom, then paused. You should shower first. I'll make coffee.
Dominic, please, just trust me. For now. Then he was gone, and she was alone in his bedroom with sunlight and silence and the growing certainty that she'd just stepped into something far more complicated than a secret office romance. She showered quickly, trying not to think about the fact that she was using Dominic Russo's bathroom, his soap, his towels.
Her clothes from last night were folded neatly on the counter. When had he done that? And she dressed in yesterday's outfit with a sinking feeling. The walk of shame, except it was her boss's apartment, and they were about to go to work together and pretend none of this had happened. When she emerged, he was in the kitchen, already dressed in a fresh suit, pouring coffee into 2 mugs. He'd shaved, fixed his hair, looked exactly like the controlled, untouchable man she worked for, except now she knew what he looked like falling apart.
Black, no sugar, he said, handing her a mug. You remembered. I remember everything about you. He said it casually, like it wasn't a grenade lobbed into the middle of her chest. Drink. We need to leave in 20 minutes. We can't arrive together. We won't. I'm taking you home first. You'll change, then head to the office like normal. He checked his watch.
If you leave your apartment at 7:45, you'll arrive at your usual time. No one will question it. She stared at him. You've already planned this out. I've been planning it for months. I just didn't think I'd ever actually do it. He met her eyes over his coffee. Last night wasn't an impulse for me, Evelyn. The message was unexpected, but wanting you. That's been constant since the beginning. Her hands shook slightly. I don't know how to do this. Neither do I, but we'll figure it out. He set down his mug, crossed to her, tipped her chin up with one finger. No regrets? She should have regrets. Should be terrified. Should be planning her resignation and her exit strategy and how to salvage what was left of her professional reputation. But when she looked at him, all she felt was want. No regrets, she whispered. He kissed her then, soft and brief, and it felt like a promise neither of them knew how to keep. The drive to her apartment was quiet. He kept his eyes on the road, one hand on the wheel, the other resting on the console between them, close enough to touch, but carefully not touching. The separation already beginning. When he pulled up outside her building, he didn't turn off the engine. I'll see you at the office, he said. Dominic, at the office, you call me Mr. Russo. His voice had shifted into something cooler, more distant. The boss voice. Everything stays exactly as it was. Understood? It hurt, even though she knew it had to be this way. Understood. Good. He glanced at her, and for just a second, the mask slipped. Tonight, come to my place after work. We'll talk properly. Okay. She got out of the car and didn't look back as she walked into her building. Behind her, she heard him drive away. Her apartment felt too small and too empty after his. She changed into work clothes, a navy dress, simple and professional, and tried to calm the riot of emotions churning in her stomach. She could do this. She'd been pretending for almost a year. She could pretend a little longer, except now she knew what she was pretending to ignore. Now she knew how he tasted, how his hands felt on her skin, how he said her name when control slipped. Now she had to walk into that office and act like none of it mattered. Her phone buzzed, a text from Shay. Shay, tell me everything. Evelyn, later, I'm late for work. Shay, you slept with him. Evelyn, later. Shay, I'm calling you tonight and you're telling me every single detail. Evelyn silenced her phone and left for the office. She arrived at 7:45 exactly, just like every other morning. The lobby was familiar, the elevator familiar, the route to her desk so routine she could do it blind. Nothing had changed. Everything had changed. Dominic was already there when she walked in, sitting at his desk, reading something on his computer. He didn't look up. Good morning, Mr. Russo. Her voice came out steady, professional. A small victory. Morning, Evelyn. He didn't glance at her. The contracts from Castellano came in. They're still insulting, but less so. Your assessment? Just like that, they were back. Boss and assistant. Professional distance restored. Except her hands remembered the feel of his shoulders, and his voice still echoed in her head saying, I want you. And she could see the coffee mug on his desk, the same one he'd handed her this morning in his kitchen. I'll review them and have notes by 10, she said. Make it 9:30. I have a call with Tokyo at 10:15. Yes, Mr. Russo. She turned to leave. Evelyn? She stopped, didn't turn around. Yes? A pause, then, good work yesterday on the Morrison report. Thank you. She walked out before her composure could crack. The morning was brutal. Not because of the work, she could handle the work blindfolded, but because of the constant awareness of him 20 feet away, separated only by a door and 1,000 unspoken rules. Every time he called her into his office, she had to remind herself not to look at him too long. Every time he spoke, she had to ignore the way his voice wrapped around her name differently now, even when he was being purely professional. And he was torture. Completely controlled, utterly focused, giving her nothing but clipped instructions and brief acknowledgments. If she didn't know better, she'd think last night had never happened. But she did know better. She saw it in the way his gaze lingered half a second too long when she handed him files. Saw it in the tension in his jaw when she leaned over his desk to point out something in a contract. Saw it in his white-knuckled grip on his pen when Marco walked in unannounced and got too close to her while making a joke. Evelyn, get my brother some coffee, Dominic said, voice tight. Then close the door on your way out. Marco raised an eyebrow. Trouble in paradise, brother? Shut up and sit down. She left before she could hear more, but her hands shook as she poured Marco's coffee. Dominic's brother was charming and reckless where Dominic was controlled and calculated, but they shared the same dark eyes, the same dangerous edge. Marco had flirted with her exactly twice before Dominic shut it down with a look that could cut glass. She thought it was because Dominic didn't want complications in the office. Now she wondered if it had been something else entirely. When she brought the coffee back, both men went silent. Marco took the mug with a grin. Thanks, beautiful. My brother doesn't deserve you. That's enough, Dominic said quietly. I'm just saying, Marco. The single word carried weight. Enough. Marco held up his hands in surrender, but he was smiling, the knowing smile of someone who'd just confirmed a suspicion. Evelyn's stomach dropped. I should get back to work, she said. Good idea, Dominic replied without looking at her. She fled. At noon, he emerged from his office, jacket on, keys in hand. I'm going to the Castellano meeting. I'll be back by 3. Do you need me to come? No. Hold my calls. He left, and the office felt bigger and colder without him. She ate lunch at her desk, leftover pasta she didn't taste, and tried to focus on work. But her mind kept drifting to last night, to this morning, to tonight, when they were supposed to talk properly about whatever this was. Her phone buzzed. A text from Dominic. Dominic, how are you holding up? She stared at the message, then glanced around the empty office like someone might be watching over her shoulder. Evelyn. Fine. You? Dominic. Barely. This meeting is interminable, and all I can think about is you in that dress. Heat flooded her face. She shouldn't respond. This was dangerous, but her fingers moved anyway. Evelyn. Focus on your meeting, Mr. Russo. Dominic. Don't call me that over text. Not when I'm imagining taking that dress off you tonight. She nearly dropped her phone. Evelyn. Dominic, you can't say things like that. Dominic. Why not? It's true. Evelyn. Because we're supposed to be keeping this separate. Professional. Dominic. We are. At the office. Right now, I'm not at the office. And tonight, when you come over, I'm going to show you exactly how unprofessional I can be. She stared at the screen, pulse racing, and had absolutely no idea how to respond to that. Another message appeared. Dominic. Sorry, that was inappropriate. Evelyn. No, don't apologize. Dominic. I'm trying to give you space to think, to be sure. But every time I see you, all I want is to... The message cut off. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Dominic. Tonight. We'll talk tonight. And then you can decide if this is really what you want. Evelyn. I already know what I want.
Dominic, do you? Because once you're in, Evelyn, you're in, all the way.
And my life it's not easy. I need you to understand that before we go any further. She typed and deleted 3 responses before settling on, Evelyn. Then help me understand. Dominic. Tonight, I promise. The conversation ended there, but she kept staring at her phone, rereading every message, trying to decode what he wasn't saying. What was so complicated about his life that he kept warning her away? She knew about the Russo name, the whispers, the unspoken power that came with it, but she'd never asked for details, and he'd never offered them. Maybe it was time to stop pretending she didn't know what she'd gotten herself into. The afternoon dragged. Dominic returned at 3:15, face unreadable, and disappeared into his office without a word. She gave him space, fielding calls and emails, organizing next week's schedule, existing in the liminal space between assistant and something more. At 5 o'clock, he emerged. You can leave, he said. I have 2 more things to, They can wait. Go home. Rest. He paused. Or come over whenever you're ready. Their eyes met, and the air between them felt charged. She nodded. I'll be there by 7. I'll order dinner. Ty okay? Ty's fine. Another pause. Then he turned and went back into his office, and she gathered her things and left before the wanting could show on her face. Shay called the moment Evelyn walked into her apartment. Finally! I've been dying all day.
Tell me everything, and I mean everything. Evelyn collapsed on her couch. I don't even know where to start. Start with the part where your emotionally unavailable boss showed up at a bar because you texted him 2 words. So she did. She told Shay about Romano's, about Dominic appearing and admitting he'd wanted her for months, about the kiss that changed everything, about going to his apartment and crossing every line that existed, about waking up this morning and trying to pretend at the office that nothing had happened. Shay was silent for a long moment after she finished. Ev, she said finally, this is insane. I know. Like genuinely insane. You're sleeping with your boss, your incredibly powerful, incredibly dangerous boss. I know. And you have no idea what you're doing. I know that too. But you're going back tonight anyway. Yes. Because you're in love with him. Evelyn closed her eyes. Yes. And you think he might love you back. I don't know, maybe. He says things, he looks at me like... She stopped, struggling for words. It feels real, Shay. It feels like more than just attraction. Or it could be exactly what it looks like. A powerful man who wants something and takes it. The words stung because they echoed her own fears. You think I'm being naive. I think you're being hopeful. And hope can be dangerous when you're dealing with someone like him. Shay's voice softened. I'm not saying don't do this. I'm saying be careful. Protect yourself. Don't lose who you are trying to be what he needs. I won't. Promise me. I promise. They talked for another 20 minutes about nothing important, and then Evelyn hung up and stared at her reflection in the darkening window. Who was she now? Still the invisible assistant who organized his life? Or someone different, someone brave enough to step into the light and risk everything? She didn't have an answer. But at 6:45, she changed into jeans and a sweater, grabbed her keys, and headed to Dominic's apartment anyway. He answered the door in dark jeans and a black t-shirt, barefoot, hair slightly damp like he'd just showered. Casual in a way she'd never seen him. Human. Hi, she said. Hi. He stepped aside, let her in. Food should be here in 20 minutes. The apartment looked different in the evening light, softer, warmer, less like a showroom, and more like a place someone actually lived. She could see small details she'd missed before. Books on the shelf, actually read, not just for show. A framed photo of him and Marco, younger, laughing. A piano in the corner that looked used. You play? She asked, nodding at it. Used to. My mother taught me. He moved to the kitchen, poured 2 glasses of wine. I don't much anymore. Why not? No time. No reason. He handed her a glass. Sit, please. You're making me nervous. I'm making you nervous? You have no idea. He guided her to the couch, sat beside her, close but not touching. I've been thinking about what to say all day, rehearsing it. And now you're here and I have no idea where to start. She took a sip of wine for courage.
Start with what you meant earlier, about your life being complicated. He studied his glass, then set it down. You know my last name. You know what it means in this city. I know rumors. They're not all rumors. He looked at her then, expression serious. My family has been in Chicago for 4 generations. We own legitimate businesses, real estate, restaurants, investments. But we also have connections to less legitimate enterprises. My father, before he died, was involved in things I've spent the last 10 years trying to distance myself from. What kind of things? The kind that get people killed. He said it flatly. Gambling, protection rackets, loan sharking. Nothing violent officially, but violence was always close. My Uncle Sal still runs that side of things. Marco dabbles. I've tried to go legitimate to clean up the family business, but the reputation follows me. The connections follow me. Evelyn's chest tightened. Are you in danger? Not actively, but people watch me. Rivals, federal agents, reporters looking for a story. And anyone close to me becomes a target by association. He turned to face her fully. That's why I've kept my personal life separate, why I don't date publicly, why I've never let anyone get close enough to matter. Until now. Until now. He reached out, tucked her hair behind her ear. You need to understand what you're signing up for, Evelyn. If people know about us, they'll come after you. They'll dig into your life looking for leverage. They'll use you to get to me. I can handle it. Can you? Because I've seen what this life does to people. I watched it destroy my mother, watched her live in fear every day until it killed her. She covered his hand with hers. What happened? Heart attack, stress-induced. She was 46. His voice roughened. She spent 20 years married to a man who brought danger to her doorstep, and it ate her alive from the inside. I won't do that to you. So what are you saying, that we can't do this? I'm saying I need you to be sure, really sure, because once you're in my life, in my world, it's not easy to get out. He pulled back slightly. I care about you too much to let you walk into this blind. She set down her wine, turned to face him fully. Then tell me everything, all of it. Let me decide with all the information. He searched her face, then nodded. Okay, but you might not like what you hear. Try me. So he did. He told her about growing up as a Russo, about the weight of expectations and the constant awareness of danger, about his father's death when Dominic was 22, officially a car accident, unofficially something darker that no one talked about inheriting businesses he hadn't wanted and trying to make them legitimate while navigating relationships with people who preferred the old ways, about Marco's recklessness and Sal's quiet menace and the constant pressure to choose between family loyalty and his own conscience. He told her about business deals that weren't quite legal, about money that moved through carefully constructed shells, about associates who made problems disappear in ways he tried not to examine too closely, about the FBI agent who'd been watching him for 3 years, waiting for one slip, one mistake, one piece of evidence that would finally stick. He told her about violence he'd witnessed but never participated in, about threats delivered with smiles, about the fine line he walked every single day between legitimate businessman and something far more dangerous. And through it all, Evelyn listened without interrupting, watching his face, seeing the weight he carried in every tight line around his eyes. When he finished, silence settled between them. So, he said finally, still want to be here? She took a breath. Can I ask you something? Anything. Have you ever killed anyone? No? No hesitation. I've never personally harmed anyone. That's a line I won't cross. But you know people who have. Yes. And you do business with them. Sometimes. When I have to. He ran a hand through his hair. I'm not a good man, Evelyn. I'm trying to be better than my father was. But I'm still part of this world. And I can't promise you safety or normalcy or any of the things you deserve. She reached for his hand, threaded their fingers together. I'm not asking for perfect. I'm asking for honest. I'm being honest. This is the truth. This is who I am. And who you are, she said quietly, is someone who's been carrying this weight alone for 10 years. Someone who's trying to build something better while everyone around you pulls you backward. Someone who showed up at a bar because I asked, even though it went against every rule you've built to protect yourself. His grip tightened. Evelyn,
I'm not naive. I know this won't be easy, but I'd rather have complicated and real with you than safe and empty with someone else. She moved closer. So yes, I still want to be here. He stared at her like he couldn't quite believe she was real. Then he pulled her into his arms, holding her so tightly she could barely breathe. You're going to regret this, he murmured against her hair. Maybe, but I'll regret not trying more. The doorbell rang, their food arriving, and they broke apart. Dominic paid the delivery guy while Evelyn set up plates in his kitchen, and the domesticity of it felt surreal. Like they were a normal couple having a normal dinner, not two people navigating the minefield between professional boundaries and dangerous desire. They ate on the couch, talking about safer things. Her family, small, quiet, far away in Minnesota. His favorite books. Her terrible cooking skills. His even worse singing voice. Small pieces of themselves traded like gifts. Why did you become an assistant? He asked at one point. I'm good at organizing chaos, and I like being useful. You're more than useful. You're essential. To your work. To my life. He said it simply, like it was fact. I don't function as well without you. Her chest ached. You're not supposed to say things like that. Why not? Because it makes me want to kiss you, and we're supposed to be talking. We can do both. He took her plate, set it aside with his, then pulled her onto his lap. Talking is overrated anyway. She laughed, and then he was kissing her, and talking stopped mattering again. His hand slid under her sweater, and she gasped at the feel of his touch. And somehow, they ended up in his bedroom again, clothes shed in a trail across the apartment, need overriding caution. Later, tangled together in the dark, he whispered, "Stay tonight. I have to go home eventually, get clean clothes for tomorrow. Stay anyway. Wake up early. I'll drive you home before work. People will see your car outside my building. Let them." He pressed a kiss to her shoulder. "I'm tired of hiding you." We agreed. I know what we agreed, but lying here with you, all I can think is that I want more. More time, more nights, more everything. She turned in his arms to face him. We have to be careful. I know. Your family, your business partners, the FBI agent watching you. I know. Dominic, if we're not careful, I know. He cupped her face. But I've spent 10 years being careful, and it hasn't made me happy. You make me happy. So we'll be smart about this, but I'm not letting go. Not now. She wanted to argue, wanted to list all the reasons this was reckless and dangerous and destined to blow up in their faces. But she was tired of being careful too, tired of living small and safe and invisible. Okay, she whispered. We'll figure it out. Together. Together. He kissed her again, soft and slow, and she let herself believe that maybe, just maybe, wanting something badly enough could make it possible. Morning came too soon, but this time Evelyn didn't panic when she woke in his arms. She let herself have the moment, the warmth, the safety, the quiet certainty that this was where she wanted to be. They showered together, which turned into more kissing and wandering hands until Dominic groaned and pulled away. We're going to be late. You're the boss. You can be late. Not without explanations I'm not ready to give. He handed her a towel. Come on. Coffee, and then I'm taking you home. They fell into an easy routine, him making coffee while she dressed in yesterday's clothes again, both of them moving around each other like they'd done this 1,000 times before. When he dropped her off at her apartment, he didn't kiss her goodbye. Too risky in broad daylight, but he caught her hand before she got out of the car. Tonight? He asked. Your place or mine? Mine. I'll cook. You cook? Passively, a small smile. 7 o'clock. Don't be late. Yes, Mr. Russo. His eyes darkened. Careful. You keep calling me that and I'm going to have very inappropriate thoughts all day. Good. She got out before he could respond, but she felt his gaze on her all the way to her door. At the office, they slipped back into their roles, professional, distant, assistant and boss. But now there were small moments that no one else would notice. His fingers brushing hers when she handed him files, the way his gaze lingered when she left his office, the slight smile he tried to hide when she sent him calendar reminders with unnecessary detail. It was dangerous and thrilling and terrifying, and Evelyn had never felt more alive. But at 3 o'clock, Marco walked into the office unannounced, and everything shifted.
He looked between Dominic and Evelyn with that knowing smile, and Evelyn's stomach dropped. "We need to talk," Marco said to his brother. "Privately." Dominic's expression went carefully blank. "Evelyn, take a break. 30 minutes. She didn't argue, but as she left, she heard Marco say, "So, you and the assistant, Sal's gonna love this." The door closed, and Evelyn stood in the hallway with her heart hammering, suddenly certain that their careful secret was about to explode. Evelyn walked to the break room on autopilot, but she couldn't make herself go inside. Instead, she stood in the hallway, close enough to Dominic's office, to hear raised voices, but too far to make out words. Her hands were shaking. Marco knew. Somehow, he'd figured it out, and now he was in there telling Dominic, what? That he was being reckless? That sleeping with his assistant was a liability? That Uncle Sal, whoever the hell that was, would have opinions about Dominic's personal life? She pressed her back against the wall and closed her eyes, trying to steady her breathing. This was always going to happen. They'd known it couldn't stay secret forever, but she'd hoped for more time. More stolen nights, more mornings waking up in his arms, more moments of pretending they could have something normal before reality crashed in. The door to Dominic's office opened. She straightened quickly, trying to look like she'd just arrived, but Marco saw right through her. "Relax, beautiful. I'm not going to rat you out." He stopped in front of her, hands in his pockets, that infuriating smile still in place. "But you should know what you're getting into." Dominic already told me." "Did he?" Marco tilted his head. "Did he tell you about the 3 relationships he's had in the last 10 years? How they all ended because the women couldn't handle the pressure? Did he mention that the last one left the country because someone sent her photos of her apartment with a note saying they knew where she slept?" Evelyn's stomach turned to ice. "What?" "My brother lives in a glass house, and there are a lot of people with rocks. You think you can handle that?" He stepped closer, voice dropping. "You seem like a nice girl, smart, normal, the kind of person who deserves a safe, boring life with a safe, boring guy. Dominic is neither of those things." "I didn't ask for your opinion." "No, but you're getting it anyway." His smile faded. "I actually like you, Evelyn. You're good for him. I've never seen him this settled, but settled doesn't mean safe. And if you stay, you need to understand that people will come after you. Not because of who you are, but because of who he is. Are you really ready for that?" She wanted to say yes, wanted to sound brave and certain, but her voice came out smaller than she intended. "Does Dominic know about the photos? About the woman who left?" "He's the one who paid for her plane ticket." Marco's expression turned serious. "He protected her the only way he could, by letting her go. So ask yourself, if it comes to that, will you go? Or will you dig in and make yourself a target he can't protect?" Before she could answer, Dominic appeared in the doorway. "That's enough, Marco. I'm just having a conversation." "No, you're scaring her. Get out!" Marco held up his hands. "Just trying to help, brother." He nodded to Evelyn. "Think about what I said." Then he left, and Evelyn was alone with Dominic in the hallway. His jaw was tight, eyes dark with something that looked like anger and fear mixed together. "Come inside," he said quietly. She followed him into his office. He closed the door, then turned to face her, and she could see the tension radiating through his entire body. "How much did you hear?" "Enough." She wrapped her arms around herself. "You never told me about the woman who left, about the photos. Because it was 3 years ago and irrelevant." "It's not irrelevant if it could happen to me." "It won't." He moved toward her, stopped just short of touching. "I'm more careful now. I have better security. I know how to protect people. By letting them go?" The words hung between them, sharp and cutting. Dominic's expression shuddered. "If that's what it takes, yes." His voice was flat. "I told you this would be dangerous. I told you my life wasn't simple. If you want out, I'll understand." "Is that what you want? For me to leave?" "What I want doesn't matter. What matters is keeping you safe." "Stop doing that." Her voice rose. "Stop trying to make decisions for me. I'm not some fragile thing that needs protecting. I'm a grown woman who knows what she's risking." "Do you?" He moved closer, and now there was heat in his voice. "Do you know what it's like to wake up every morning wondering if today's the day someone uses you to get to me? Do you know what it's like to check your car for bombs before you start the engine? To have FBI agents follow you to the grocery store? To see shadows in every corner and threats in every phone call? No. But I'm willing to learn if it means being with you. You shouldn't have to learn. You should have a normal life with someone who doesn't come with a target on his back. She stepped into his space, close enough to feel his heat. I don't want normal. I want you. Evelyn, do you want me? Still? After Marco's warnings and all the ways this could go wrong? You know I do. Then stop trying to push me away and let me make my own choices. She grabbed his tie, pulled him down to eye level. I'm staying. Deal with it. Something in his expression cracked. He kissed her hard, almost desperately, hands tangling in her hair. She kissed him back with equal intensity, pouring every ounce of frustration and fear and stubborn determination into it. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, he pressed his forehead to hers. You're going to be the death of me, he murmured. Good. At least you won't die alone. He laughed, an actual laugh, rough and surprised, and pulled her closer. We need to be smarter about this. Marco figured it out in 2 days. Other people will too. So what do? We stop pretending nothing's changed at work. Not a full announcement, but we let people adjust to seeing us together. Lunch meetings, after-work drinks, small shifts that make it less shocking when it eventually comes out. You want to go public? Eventually. Not today. But soon. He stroked her cheek. I'm tired of hiding you. And the longer we hide, the more ammunition we give people who want to use this against us. She nodded slowly. Okay. We do this your way. But Dominic, what Marco said about the woman who left, her name was Claire. She was a lawyer I dated for 8 months. Someone found out about her, did some digging, and started sending her messages, photos of her apartment, her office, her parents' house. No direct threats, just a reminder that they could reach her anytime they wanted. His voice went rough. She couldn't sleep, couldn't function, so I ended it and paid for her to relocate to Seattle. Last I heard, she's engaged to a tech guy and happy. Do you still care about her? I care that she's safe, that's all. He met her eyes. She wasn't you, Evelyn. What I felt for her was manageable, controllable. What I feel for you is neither of those things. Her breath caught. What do you feel for me? Too much, more than I should, more than is smart or safe or any of the things I'm supposed to prioritize. He kissed her softly. I'm falling for you. Have been since the beginning, and that terrifies me more than any threat I've ever faced. She wanted to say it back. Those 3 words that had been building in her chest for months, but fear held her tongue. Saying it out loud would make it real, would give it power, would turn this into something she couldn't walk away from even if she wanted to. Instead, she kissed him again and hoped he could feel it in the way she held him. We should get back to work, she said finally, before anyone else walks in. Probably, but he didn't let go. Tonight, my place. We'll talk more about how to handle this. And if Marco tells your uncle? Then I'll deal with it. Sal doesn't control my personal life. But the way he said it, tight and defensive, made her think Marco had said something specific about Uncle Sal's opinions, something that worried Dominic more than he was admitting. She filed that concern away for later and stepped back, smoothing her dress. I should go finish the Castellano contracts. Evelyn. She paused at the door, looked back. Thank you, he said quietly, for staying. Where else would I go? The rest of the afternoon passed in tense normalcy. Evelyn worked through contracts and emails, hyper-aware of every person who walked past her desk, every glance in Dominic's direction, but no one seemed to notice anything different. The office continued its usual rhythm, oblivious to the bomb ticking in their midst. At 5:30, her phone buzzed. A text from a number she didn't recognize. Unknown. Tell your boyfriend to watch his back. Some debts don't forget. She stared at the message, blood turning to ice. Then another text came through. Unknown. Pretty thing like you shouldn't be mixed up in Russo business. Bad things happen to pretty things. Her hand started shaking. She looked up, scanning the office, but everyone was focused on their own work. No one watching her. No one paying attention. She screenshotted both messages and walked into Dominic's office without knocking. He looked up, immediately alert. What's wrong? She handed him her phone silently. His expression went cold and dangerous as he read the messages. When did these come in? Just now, both within a minute. He stood, already pulling out his own phone. I'm calling my security guy. This number... He stopped, jaw tight. This is a burner, untraceable, but the timing is too convenient to be random.
What does it mean? It means someone knows about us and wants me to know they know. He was already typing rapidly. Are you okay? Did anyone approach you today? Follow you? No, nothing. I've been here all day. Doesn't matter. They know where you live, where you work, probably where you get your coffee in the morning. He looked up, and the fear in his eyes was worse than the messages. This is what I warned you about. I know.
And you're still standing here instead of running?
I'm not running, her voice steadied, but I'm also not stupid. What do we do? He made 3 phone calls in rapid succession, to his security team, to someone named Vincent, who apparently handled problems, and finally to Marco. Each conversation was clipped and efficient, all business, but Evelyn could see the tension building in his shoulders. When he hung up, he turned to her. You're not going home tonight.
You're coming to my place, and tomorrow Vincent is installing a security system at your apartment. Marco's pulling camera footage from the office building to see if anyone was watching you. And I'm putting a protective detail on you starting now. A protective detail? Like a bodyguard? Like someone who knows what they're doing and won't let anything happen to you. He moved to her, gripped her shoulders. I know this sounds extreme, but these people, they don't make empty threats. If they contacted you, it's because they want me rattled, and the best way to rattle me is to hurt you. Who are they? Could be anyone. Old rivals, new ones, someone my father crossed 20 years ago and their son is feeling ambitious. The list is unfortunately long. He pulled her closer. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. This is exactly what I didn't want to happen. It's not your fault. It is. You're a target because of me. Then protect me. That's what you said you'd do, right? That you're more careful now? I am. I will. He pressed his lips to her forehead. But Evelyn, if this gets worse, if they escalate, we'll deal with it. She pulled back to look at him. Together, remember? He searched her face, looking for cracks, for fear, for any sign she was reconsidering, but she kept her expression steady even though inside she was screaming. Someone had her phone number. Someone knew where she lived. Someone was watching. And she was choosing to stay anyway. A knock on the door made them both jump. Dominic moved away from her quickly as Marco walked in without waiting for permission. Got something on the cameras, he said, holding up his phone. Guy in a black jacket, early 20s, stood across the street from the building for 40 minutes this afternoon, made 2 phone calls, left at 5:15. Get me a clear image, Dominic said. Marco nodded. Vincent's already running facial recognition. Should have an ID by tonight. He looked at Evelyn. You okay? I'm fine. No, you're not. But you're still here, which means you're either brave or crazy. A slight smile. I'm going with brave. Marco, Dominic warned. What? I'm being supportive. To Evelyn, for what it's worth, you've got the entire Russo family watching your back now. Anyone tries something, they'll regret it. It should have been reassuring. Instead, it made the situation feel more real and more dangerous. She wasn't just involved with Dominic anymore. She was involved with his entire world. Thank you, she said quietly. Marco left, and Dominic started gathering files. Come on, we're leaving. You can work from my place tomorrow if you need to, but tonight I want you where I can see you. What about my clothes, my things? I'll send Vincent to get them. You give him a list, he'll pack a bag. That's non-negotiable. His voice was gentle but firm. Please, Evelyn, let me do this. Let me keep you safe. She nodded, too overwhelmed to argue. They left through the private elevator that went straight to the parking garage, a route she'd never used before. Dominic's hand stayed on her lower back the entire time, and she noticed he kept scanning the area, checking corners, watching for threats she wouldn't know how to spot. This was his life. This constant vigilance, this weight of always looking over his shoulder, and she'd just signed up for it. The drive to his apartment was silent. Dominic kept checking his mirrors, taking random turns, doubling back twice, making sure they weren't followed. When they finally pulled into his building's underground garage, he made her wait in the car while he checked the elevator. Okay, he said, opening her door. Stay close. Inside his apartment, he immediately went to the windows, checking locks, adjusting blinds. She stood in the middle of his living room, feeling useless and lost. Dominic. He turned, and the look on his face, guilty and fierce and protective all at once, made her chest ache. Come here, she said. He crossed to her, and she wrapped her arms around him, holding tight. He buried his face in her hair, and she felt the tension drain out of him slightly. I can't lose you, he murmured. I just found you. I can't. You won't. I'm right here. They stood like that for a long moment, just holding each other until his phone rang. He pulled back reluctantly to answer. Vincent, what do you have? A pause. Yeah, I figured. Okay, get me a full workup by morning. Another pause. No, she's here with me. I need you to go to her apartment. He held the phone away. What's your address? She told him, and he relayed it to Vincent along with instructions on what to pack. When he hung up, he looked exhausted. Vincent says the guy on the camera is connected to the Moretti family, small-time enforcer. Someone hired him to watch you and make contact. The Morettis? Old rivals. They've been quiet for years, but he ran a hand through his hair. There's been tension lately. Business disagreements, territory disputes. I thought it was under control. And now? Now they're sending messages, which means they want something, or they want me to know they can get to me. He moved to the kitchen, poured 2 glasses of whiskey. Either way, it's about leverage. So what do they want? That's what I need to find out. He handed her a glass. But first we eat. You look pale. She hadn't realized how shaken she was until she tried to drink and her hands trembled. Dominic noticed immediately, taking the glass from her and setting it down. Hey, look at me. He tilted her chin up. You're safe here. I have security on this building that would make the Secret Service jealous. No one gets in without my knowing about it. But eventually, I have to leave. Go to work. Go home. Live my life. With protection. With someone watching who knows what to look for. He stroked her cheek. I know it's not ideal. I know it's not what you signed up for, but it's temporary. Once I figure out what the Morettis want and deal with it, things will calm down. And if they don't? His expression hardened. Then I'll make them. There was something in his voice, something cold and absolute, that reminded her he wasn't just a businessman. He was a Russo. And Russos didn't back down from threats. I don't want you doing something you'll regret, she said quietly. I won't regret protecting you. Even if it means crossing lines you said you wouldn't cross. He was silent for a long moment. I've spent 10 years trying to be better than my father, trying to build something legitimate. But if someone threatens you, Evelyn, I will burn everything down to keep you safe, and I won't regret it. The certainty in his voice should have scared her. Instead, it made something fierce bloom in her chest. He meant it, every word. Okay, she said, then we deal with the Morettis. We figure out what they want, and we make this stop. We? You think I'm going to sit on the sidelines while you handle this alone? She stepped closer. I'm in this now. All the way. Like you said. What? A ghost of a smile touched his mouth. You're going to be trouble. You have no idea. He kissed her then, soft and sweet, and for a moment the fear receded. They were just 2 people in an apartment, stealing a moment of peace before the storm. But the storm was coming. They both knew it. Dominic ordered Chinese food, and they ate curled up on his couch while he made more phone calls. To Marco, to Vincent, to someone named Tony, who apparently ran security for several Russo properties. Evelyn listened to half conversations and tried to piece together what was happening. The Morettis wanted a meeting, neutral territory, tomorrow night. Dominic refused, too dangerous, too soon. The Morettis insisted. Either Dominic met with them, or the messages to Evelyn would escalate. Dominic told them to go to hell and hung up. That was probably unwise, she said carefully. Probably. He set down his phone. But I don't negotiate under threat. The moment I do, they know they have leverage. So what happens now? Now we wait. Marco's making some calls, seeing if we can figure out what they actually want. Once we know that, we can plan. And in the meantime, I just... What? Hide here? You stay safe, work remotely if you want, but you don't go anywhere alone. He pulled her closer. I know it's not fair. I know you didn't sign up for this. Stop apologizing. She twisted to face him. I made my choice. I'm staying. So let's figure out how to fix this instead of you beating yourself up about it. He studied her face for a long moment. How are you this calm? I'm not. I'm terrified, but falling apart won't help either of us. You're remarkable. You know that? I'm practical. You're remarkable, he insisted. And He stopped, jaw working. I'm falling in love with you. Have been for months. And that scares me more than the Morettis or the FBI or anything else I've ever faced. The words hung in the air, raw and honest. Evelyn's throat tightened. Say something, he said quietly. I love you too. The words came out rushed, almost desperate. I've loved you since, I don't know when. Maybe that first week, maybe the first day. I just know that I can't imagine being anywhere else or with anyone else. And if that makes me crazy, then I'm crazy. He kissed her like she was oxygen and he'd been drowning. She kissed him back with equal intensity, trying to pour every emotion she couldn't articulate into the touch. When they finally broke apart, both breathless, he rested his forehead against hers. We're going to survive this, he said. I know. And when we do, I'm going to give you the life you deserve. Safe, happy, no more looking over your shoulder. I don't need perfect, Dominic. I just need you. He pulled her fully into his lap, holding her like she might disappear. They stayed like that for a long time, just breathing together, finding comfort in proximity. Eventually, exhaustion caught up with her. The adrenaline crash hit hard and she found herself drifting against his chest. He carried her to bed without a word, tucked her in, and climbed in beside her. Sleep, he murmured. I've got you. She wanted to stay awake, to talk more, to plan, but her body had other ideas. She fell asleep to the sound of his heartbeat, steady and strong. She woke in darkness to the sound of Dominic's voice, low and angry, coming from the other room. The clock read 3 a.m. She slipped out of bed, grabbed his t-shirt from the floor, and padded toward the living room. He was standing by the windows, phone pressed to his ear, tension radiating from every line of his body. I don't care what Sal thinks. This is my decision. A pause. Marco, you need to trust me on this. No, I'm not. He stopped, sensing her presence, and turned. I have to go. We'll talk tomorrow. He hung up and crossed to her. Did I wake you? What's wrong? Sal wants me to give the Morettis what they're asking for. End this before it escalates. What are they asking for? His jaw tightened. Partnership. They want in on 3 of my legitimate businesses, restaurants, real estate, clean fronts for their operations. Can't you just say no? I did, but Sal thinks refusing will start a war, and wars are expensive. He pulled her close. He also thinks my judgment is compromised because of you. Is it? Yes. He said it without hesitation. If this were just about business, I'd find a compromise. But they threatened you. They made this personal, so now I'm not compromising. Dominic, I know what you're going to say, that I should think strategically, that one relationship isn't worth risking everything I've built. His hand cupped her face. But you're not just one relationship, you're everything, and I'm done pretending otherwise. She stood on her toes and kissed him. Then we fight. We? I told you I'm in this, all the way. He held her tight, and she felt something shift between them. They weren't just falling anymore. They'd landed. This was real and solid and worth fighting for. The Morettis want to meet tomorrow night, he said finally. I'm going. Not alone. Marco and Vincent will be there. And me. Absolutely not. Dominic, no. His voice was firm. I will not bring you to a meeting with people who threatened you. That's non-negotiable. Then what am I supposed to do? Sit here and worry? Yes. Exactly that. He softened slightly. I need to know you're safe. That's the only way I can focus on ending this. She wanted to argue, wanted to insist she could handle it, but she also knew she'd be a distraction, another thing for him to worry about instead of focusing on the threat. Fine, she said. But you call me the second it's over, I promise. They went back to bed, but neither of them slept. Instead, they lay tangled together in the darkness, stealing whatever piece they could before morning came and the real battle began. The next day crawled by with agonizing slowness. Evelyn worked from Dominic's apartment, laptop open on his dining table, trying to focus on contracts and emails while her mind spun with worst-case scenarios. Vincent had arrived at 8 a.m. with a bag of her clothes and toiletries, his expression neutral but his presence a reminder that she was under protection now. Under guard. Dominic had left for the office at 7:30, kissing her forehead and promising to check in every hour. He'd kept that promise, texts arriving like clockwork, brief updates that said nothing substantial but reminded her he was thinking about her. Marco stopped by at noon with lunch, uninvited but not unwelcome. "You're not eating," he observed, sitting across from her with 2 sandwiches from the deli downstairs. "I'm not hungry." "Eat anyway. You need your strength." He pushed a sandwich toward her. "Dominic's going to be impossible if you pass out from low blood sugar." She took a bite just to make him stop hovering. "Shouldn't you be at the office?" "I'm working remotely today. Someone needs to make sure you don't spiral into anxiety." He studied her carefully. "You're handling this better than I expected." "What were you expecting?" "Tears, panic, maybe packing a bag and running for the airport." He shrugged. "Most people would." "I'm not most people." "No, you're definitely not." His expression turned serious. "For what it's worth, I'm glad you're sticking around. My brother needs someone like you." Someone stupid enough to date a man with a target on his back? Someone strong enough to stand beside him instead of behind him. Marco took a bite of his sandwich. He spent 10 years alone, Evelyn, keeping everyone at a distance because he thought that's what kept them safe. You're the first person who's refused to stay distant. And look where that got me. Threats, bodyguards, hiding in his apartment while he goes to meet with people who want to hurt him. He's not going to get hurt. Vincent and I will be there. And Dominic, he's smarter than people give him credit for. He'll find a way to end this without bloodshed. But what if he doesn't? The fear she'd been pushing down all morning finally broke through. What if this goes wrong? What if they... They won't, Marco's voice was firm. Because Dominic has something to lose now. You. And when my brother has something to protect, he doesn't take chances. She wanted to believe him, wanted to trust that Dominic would walk out of that meeting unharmed and come home to her. But fear had a grip on her chest that wouldn't loosen. Marco stayed for another hour talking about nothing important, his terrible dating life, a restaurant he wanted to try, a vacation he was planning to Miami. Normal conversation meant to distract her, and she was grateful for it even though it didn't quite work. When he left, the apartment felt too quiet. She tried to work, but the words on her screen blurred together. Tried to watch television, but couldn't focus. Tried to read, but the same paragraph repeated 3 times without sinking in. At 4 o'clock, Dominic called. "How are you holding up?" His voice was warm, concerned. "I'm fine. Are you... How's the office?" "Same as always. No one suspects you're not here sick." A pause. "The meeting's at 8. Neutral location. A restaurant the Morettis own on the south side." "That doesn't sound neutral." "It's the best I could negotiate. But Vincent's already scoped it out. Multiple exits, no obvious ambush points." He sounded like he was trying to convince himself as much as her. "This is just a conversation, Evelyn. They want to make their case. I'll listen. We'll find a compromise." "What if there is no compromise?" "Then I'll figure something else out. But either way, this ends tonight." His voice softened. "I love you. You know that, right?" Her throat tightened. "I know. I love you too." "Good. Hold on to that. I'll be home before you know it." He hung up, and she was alone again with her fear and the ticking clock. 6 o'clock came, then 7. She paced the apartment, checking her phone at every 30 seconds, even though she knew he wouldn't call until after the meeting. Vincent had stationed himself outside the apartment door, a silent sentinel. She'd tried to make conversation earlier, but he was all business, polite but distant, clearly taking his job seriously. At 7:45, her phone rang. Unknown number. Her blood ran cold. She almost didn't answer, but something made her swipe to accept. "Hello? Miss Carter." The voice was smooth, older, unfamiliar. "We haven't been formally introduced. My name is Anthony Moretti." She sank onto the couch, heart hammering. "How did you get this number?" "The same way I got your address, your work schedule, your favorite coffee shop." A pause. I know you're frightened. That's not my intention. I'm calling to offer you an opportunity. I'm not interested in anything you're offering. Hear me out. Dominic Russo is a stubborn man. He's going to walk into this meeting tonight convinced he can outmaneuver me. But he can't. I have leverage he doesn't know about. Business deals that will collapse if he doesn't cooperate. Associates who owe me favors. Ways of applying pressure that don't involve violence. Then why threaten me? Because you're his weakness. And I needed him to understand that I know where to strike if negotiations fail. His voice remained pleasant, conversational. But I don't want to strike, Miss Carter. I want a partnership, one that benefits both families. And I think you can help me convince him. I'm not going to manipulate him for you. I'm not asking you to manipulate. I'm asking you to be reasonable, to help him see that compromise isn't surrender. A pause. You love him, don't you? She didn't answer. Then help me keep him alive. Because if he refuses my offer tonight, if he chooses pride over pragmatism, there are people in my organization who won't be as patient as I am. People who believe the old ways are better, and the old ways involve solving problems permanently. Are you threatening to kill him? I'm stating facts. I don't want violence, but I can't control everyone under my umbrella. He sighed, and it almost sounded genuine. Talk to him. Tell him what I said. Help him understand that this doesn't have to be a war. We can both get what we want. And what do you want? Partnership in 3 businesses, restaurants primarily, places where money can move quietly. In exchange, you get safety. He gets peace. Everyone wins. Except he loses control of his legitimate operations. He keeps majority control. I just want a seat at the table. Another pause. Think about it, Miss Carter, and ask yourself, is his pride worth both your lives? The line went dead. Evelyn sat frozen, phone clutched in her hand, mind racing. She should call Dominic, warn him that Moretti had made contact, but he was probably already at the restaurant, already walking into whatever trap or negotiation waited. She looked at the time. 7:58. The meeting would start any minute. Her hand shook as she dialed Marco. Evelyn, what's wrong? Anthony Moretti just called me. Marco, he knows everything. My address, my routine. Slow down. What did he say? She relayed the conversation as accurately as she could, stumbling over words, trying to remember every detail. Marco was silent until she finished. Son of a bitch, he muttered. He's trying to use you to pressure Dominic before they even sit down. Okay, I'm calling Vincent. We need to... Is Dominic already there? He's walking in now. But this changes things. If Moretti's willing to contact you directly, he's more desperate than we thought. Sounds of movement. Stay put. Lock the doors. Don't answer any calls from numbers you don't recognize. I'm heading to the restaurant now. Marco? I've got him, Evelyn. I promise. Just stay safe. He hung up, and she was alone again. But now the fear had transformed into something sharper, more focused. Moretti had made a mistake. He'd shown his hand, revealed that he needed this partnership as badly as Dominic allegedly did. And desperate people made errors. She just hoped Dominic saw it the same way. The next 2 hours were the longest of her life. She paced, sat, paced again, checked her phone compulsively, considered calling Dominic a dozen times but stopped herself. He needed to focus, needed to handle this without her distracting him. At 10:15, her phone finally rang. Dominic. She answered before the first ring finished. Are you okay? I'm fine, it's done. He sounded exhausted. I'm on my way home. Is Vincent still outside? Yes, what happened? Did you... I'll tell you everything when I get there. 20 minutes. A pause. I love you. I love you too. She spent those 20 minutes barely breathing. When she finally heard his key in the lock, she was at the door before it fully opened. He looked tired and rumpled, tie loosened, hair disheveled like he'd been running his hands through it. But he was whole, unhurt, alive. She threw herself at him, and he caught her, holding tight. I'm okay, he murmured into her hair. We're okay. She pulled back to look at him. What happened? He guided her to the couch, kept her hand in his as they sat. Moretti laid out his proposal. Partnership. Majority stakes in 3 properties. In exchange, he pulls his people back, and we coexist peacefully. And I told him I'd consider it. He held up a hand when she started to protest. Not because I'm giving in, because I needed time. Marco's already working on an alternative. We're going to buy out the properties Moretti wants, sell them off, remove them from the equation entirely. Can you do that? It'll cost me a lot. But yes. He rubbed his face. The Castellano deal I've been working on? If that goes through, I'll have the capital to restructure. Move everything valuable into holdings Moretti can't touch. Give him nothing of substance while technically meeting his demands. That's brilliant. That's survival. He looked at her. Marco told me about the call, about Moretti contacting you directly. I should have called you immediately, but I was walking into a meeting and you didn't want to distract me, I know. He pulled her closer. What did he say exactly? Every word. She recounted the conversation as best she could remember. Dominic's expression grew darker with each sentence. He overplayed, Dominic said finally, showing you he knows your routines, making direct contact. That's desperation, not strength, which means his position isn't as solid as he wants me to believe. Marco said the same thing. Marco's right. If Moretti had real power, he wouldn't need to threaten my girlfriend to get what he wants. He stroked her cheek. But it also means we need to be more careful. He's unpredictable now, dangerous. So what's the plan? The plan is we move fast. I'm meeting with Castellano tomorrow to finalize terms. Once that money's in play, I restructure everything. Within a week, maybe 2, Moretti's leverage disappears. He met her eyes. And you stay protected. Vincent's putting together a full security detail. Someone with you at all times until this is resolved. I can't live like that forever. You won't have to, just until Moretti realizes he's lost and moves on. He kissed her forehead. I'm not going to let anything happen to you, Evelyn. Whatever it takes. She believed him, but she also saw the cost in his eyes. The weight of responsibility, the fear of failing, the constant calculation of risks and contingencies. This was his world. This was what loving her meant for him. I'm sorry, she whispered. For what? For making this complicated. For being someone you have to protect. Don't. His voice was fierce. Don't apologize for existing in my life. You're the best thing that's happened to me in 10 years. If protecting you is complicated, then complicated is exactly where I want to be. She kissed him, pouring every ounce of love and fear and gratitude into it. He kissed her back with equal intensity, and for a few perfect moments, the threats and danger faded into background noise. When they finally broke apart, he rested his forehead against hers. Come to bed, he said quietly. We both need sleep. They lay tangled together in the darkness, neither quite able to relax. Evelyn could feel the tension in Dominic's body, the way his mind kept working even as exhaustion pulled at him. Talk to me, she said softly. What are you thinking? That I should have seen this coming. The Morettis have been quiet for too long. I should have known they were planning something. You can't predict everything. I'm supposed to. That's my job. Anticipate threats. Neutralize them before they become problems. His arm tightened around her. And instead I got distracted. Let my guard down. Let you become a target. I'm not your responsibility to manage like a business deal. You're more important than any business deal. That's the problem. He shifted to look at her in the dim light. Every decision I make now, I'm thinking about how it affects you. What keeps you safest? And that's new for me. I'm not used to factoring someone else into the equation. Do you regret it? No, never. But it changes everything. He traced patterns on her shoulder absently. My whole life, I've made decisions based on logic, risk assessment, cost-benefit analysis, cold calculation. And then you walked into my office and suddenly none of that mattered because all I could think was that I wanted you, needed you, would do anything to keep you. Even give Moretti what he wants? If it came to that, yes, without hesitation. He said it simply, like it was obvious. But it won't come to that. I'll find another way. And if you can't, then I'll make one. His voice was absolute. I didn't survive my father's death and 10 years of building something legitimate just to hand it over to a rival family. But I also won't sacrifice you for pride, so I'll find the option that gives us both. She studied his face in the shadows, the strong jaw, the dark eyes, the expression that was equal parts determination and exhaustion. This was the man she'd fallen in love with, not despite the danger and complication, but because he faced it head on and refused to break. I trust you, she said. Something in his expression softened. You shouldn't. I'm making this up as I go. No, you're not. You're doing exactly what you've always done, protecting what matters while building something better. She kissed him softly. And now I matter. That's all that's changed. He pulled her impossibly closer. You matter more than anything. They fell asleep like that, holding each other in the dark, and for a few hours the world outside couldn't touch them. Morning came with phone calls. Dominic was up at 6, already on a conference call with Marco and someone named David, who handled the Russo family's legal affairs. Evelyn listened from bed, piecing together the conversation. The Castellano deal was moving forward. Contracts would be ready for signature by end of week. Once the money transferred, Dominic could execute the restructuring plan. But there were complications, permits that needed approval, inspections that were suddenly facing delays, bureaucratic obstacles that felt suspiciously coordinated. Moretti's playing games, she heard Dominic say, stalling the Castellano deal while he waits for my answer. Okay, get me a meeting with Alderman Chen. If the permits are being blocked at the city level, we go around them. More conversation she couldn't quite hear. Then Dominic appeared in the bedroom doorway, phone still pressed to his ear. I have to go to City Hall, he said to her. Meetings all morning. Vincent will stay with you. I should come back to work. People are going to notice I'm gone. You're sick. We already put out that story. He moved to her, pressed a kiss to her forehead. One more day, please. Just until I know Moretti's not going to escalate. She wanted to argue, but the fear in his eyes stopped her. Okay. One more day. He left, and she was alone again with Vincent's silent presence outside and the growing certainty that her life had fundamentally changed. She couldn't go back to being invisible now. Couldn't pretend she was just an assistant living a quiet, simple life. She was Dominic Russo's girlfriend, and that meant living in the light, bright and exposing and dangerous. Shay called at noon, and Evelyn answered with relief. Finally! I've been trying to reach you for 2 days. What the hell is going on? Evelyn told her. All of it. The threats, the meeting, Moretti's phone call, the restructuring plan. Shay was silent for a long moment. Ev, she said finally, this is insane. You need to... Don't say I need to leave him. I'm not leaving. I was going to say you need to be careful, but also maybe consider witness protection or something. Despite everything, Evelyn laughed. It's not that bad. You have a bodyguard and you can't leave the apartment. It's exactly that bad. Shay's voice softened. But I get it. You love him. And he clearly loves you enough to restructure his entire business to keep you safe. That's actually kind of romantic in a terrifying mobster movie sort of way. He's not a mobster. He's mobster adjacent. There's a difference, but it's a small one. A pause. Are you okay? Really? I think so. I'm scared, but I'm also, I don't know, certain. Like this is exactly where I'm supposed to be, even though it's terrifying. That's called love, babe. It makes you stupid and brave in equal measure. Thanks. That's comforting. I'm here if you need me, anytime, even if you just need someone to vent to who isn't involved in all the drama. They talked for another hour about normal things, Shay's job, her disaster of a date last weekend, plans for a vacation they should take when this was over. Normal friendship conversation that made Evelyn feel grounded. When she hung up, she felt better, less isolated, less like she was drowning in a situation she couldn't control. Dominic came home at 4 with takeout and exhaustion written across his face. How'd it go? She asked as he set food on the counter. Chen's being difficult, says the permits are tied up in committee review. But Marco found out that Moretti's cousin sits on that committee, so he shrugged. We're filing an appeal. Should buy us time, but it's going to delay everything. Can you still make the Castellano deadline? Maybe, if I can get the permits pushed through. He pulled her into his arms. How was your day? Long, boring. I answered emails and had a very intense staring contest with your refrigerator. He smiled against her hair. Who won? The refrigerator. It's very intimidating. They ate dinner curled up on the couch, and Evelyn felt some of the tension ease from Dominic's shoulders as they talked about nothing important. For a little while, they could almost pretend they were normal. At 8 o'clock, his phone rang. He glanced at the screen and his expression went cold.
It's Moretti, he answered, putting it on speaker. You have 30 seconds. Dominic, always so abrupt. Moretti's smooth voice filled the room.
I'm calling to check on your consideration of my offer. It's been 3 days. I said I'd think about it. I'm thinking. While simultaneously working to dismantle the very businesses I want partnership in. Did you think I wouldn't notice? Dominic's jaw tightened. I'm restructuring my holdings. That's not your concern. It is when you're clearly trying to cheat me out of what we discussed.
The pleasant tone never wavered. I'm disappointed, Dominic.
I thought we could handle this like businessmen.
We are. Business is never personal.
But your girlfriend is very personal, and she's still very accessible.
A pause. I'd hate for something unfortunate to happen because you couldn't play fair. Every muscle in Dominic's body went rigid. If you touch her, I'm not threatening. I'm reminding. You have until Friday to give me a real answer. After that, I can't guarantee my associates will remain as patient as I am.
The line went dead. Dominic hurled his phone across the room. It hit the wall and shattered. Evelyn flinched.
Dominic,
I'm going to kill him. His voice was low and deadly. I'm going to find every weak point in his organization and burn it all down.
That's not the answer.
Then what is? He spun to face her. He just threatened you. Again, made it clear that Friday's his deadline. So either I give him what he wants or... He stopped, jaw working. Or I do what I said I wouldn't do and cross lines I swore I'd never cross. She stood, moved to him. What lines? The kind my father crossed. Violence, intimidation, making people disappear. He looked at her with something dark and desperate in his eyes. I could do it. I have the connections, the resources. One call to the right people and Moretti becomes a problem that solves itself. And then you become your father. Is that what you want? I want you safe, and I want you whole. She grabbed his face, forcing him to look at her. Don't do this. Don't become something you'll hate just to protect me. What choice do I have? We find another way. We outsmart him. There is no other way, Evelyn. He's not going to stop. He'll keep pushing until I either give in or fight back, and I am not giving in. Then we fight smart. Not violent, smart. She held his gaze. You said you're good at this, at navigating these situations, so navigate. Find the pressure point that makes him back off without you having to kill someone? He laughed bitterly. You can't even say it. Because I don't want you to do it. Because the man I love wouldn't do it. The man you love, he said quietly, is trying very hard not to be a killer. But if it's between his conscience and your life, there's no competition. She saw it then, the edge he was standing on, the choice he was preparing to make. And she knew that if he crossed that line, even for her, it would destroy something fundamental in him.
What if we run? She said suddenly. Just leave. Chicago, the business, all of it. He'd find us. People like Moretti don't forget. Then what if we give him something else, something he wants more than the businesses? Like what? Information, connections, something that makes him more powerful without you having to give up control. Her mind raced. You said you have associates.
People who owe you favors. What if you broker deals for him? Introductions he can't get on his own? Dominic stared at her. You want me to make him legitimate? I want you to give him status, respectability, the thing he actually wants but can't buy. She gripped his arms. Think about it. He doesn't really want your restaurants. He wants what they represent, access to your world, your connections. What if you give him that without giving him control? She could see his mind working, running through possibilities. It could work, he said slowly. If I position it right, offer him partnership in name but not substance, introduce him to the right people, make him feel included without actually sharing power. Exactly. You give him what he thinks he wants while keeping what actually matters. He pulled her into his arms, holding tight. You're brilliant. You know that?
I'm practical. There's a difference. You just potentially saved me from becoming a murderer. That's more than practical. He kissed her hard. Okay, we try it your way. I'll call Marco, set up a meeting with Moretti, offer him a new deal. And if he refuses? His expression hardened. Then we'll deal with that when it happens. He spent the next hour on the phone with Marco, then with Vincent, then with 3 other people whose names Evelyn didn't catch.
Building a strategy. Crafting an offer. Finding the angle that would make Moretti feel like he was winning while Dominic kept everything that mattered. By midnight, he had a plan. By morning, he had a meeting scheduled. And by Friday, one way or another, this would be over. Friday arrived with the weight of an ultimatum. Evelyn woke early to find Dominic already dressed, standing by the windows with coffee in hand, staring out at the city like he could bend it to his will through sheer force of determination. "Couldn't sleep?" she asked softly. He turned, and the exhaustion on his face made her chest ache. Kept running through every scenario, every possible way this could go wrong. She crossed to him, took the coffee from his hands, and set it aside, then wrapped her arms around him. He held her like she was the only solid thing in a shifting world. "It's going to work," she said against his chest. "You can't know that. I know you, and I know you don't lose." She pulled back to look at him. "What time is the meeting?" 2:00. Neutral location this time, a conference room at the Drake Hotel. Public enough that Moretti can't try anything stupid, private enough that we can talk openly. He stroked her cheek. "Marco and Vincent will be there. David's drawing up preliminary paperwork. If Moretti agrees to the new terms, we sign today and this ends. And if he doesn't?" Dominic's expression went hard. "Then I have contingencies. Plans B through F. One of them will work." She didn't ask what those contingencies involved. Didn't want to know how far he'd be willing to go if diplomacy failed. Instead, she kissed him, trying to pour strength and certainty into the touch. "I'm coming with you," she said when they broke apart. "Absolutely not." "Dominic, we've had this argument. You're not walking into a room with the man who threatened you." "I'm not asking permission. I'm telling you." Her voice was steady. "This is about me, my safety, my future with you. I deserve to be there. It's too dangerous. So is everything else we've been doing, but I'm still here." She held his gaze. "You said you wanted me as a partner, not someone you protect from the shadows. So let me be your partner. Let me stand beside you." He stared at her for a long moment, jaw tight, clearly fighting every instinct that told him to keep her away from this. Finally, he exhaled roughly. "You stay next to me the entire time. You don't engage with Moretti directly. And if anything feels wrong, you leave immediately. Vincent will be assigned to you specifically." "Okay." "I mean it, Evelyn. This isn't negotiable." "I said okay." She stood on her toes and kissed him. "We do this together." The hours before the meeting crawled by with agonizing slowness. Dominic made phone calls, reviewed documents, went over strategy with Marco and David. Evelyn tried to work but couldn't focus, so instead she prepared, choosing her outfit carefully, a navy dress that was professional and understated, trying to project confidence she didn't entirely feel. At 1:00, Vincent arrived to escort them to the hotel. The drive was silent, tension thick in the car. Dominic held her hand the entire way, thumb stroking her knuckles in an absent rhythm that she suspected was more for his comfort than hers. The Drake Hotel was elegant and imposing, all marble and chandeliers and old money. They took a private elevator to the 3rd floor where a conference room had been reserved under a false name. Marco was already there, along with David, a sharp-eyed man in his 50s who nodded at Evelyn but didn't waste time on pleasantries. "Moretti's bringing 2 associates," Marco said. "Standard security protocol. Vincent and I will be in the room. David stays by the door. Evelyn," he looked at Dominic. "You're really bringing her?" She insisted. "And you let her win that argument?" Marco almost smiled. "You're more gone than I thought." "Focus," Dominic said shortly. "What do we know about his associates?" "Cousin Luca and a guy named DeMarco. Neither are fighters. This is a business meeting, not an ambush." Marco's expression turned serious. "But stay alert. Moretti's desperate, and desperate people make mistakes." At 1:58, Anthony Moretti arrived. He was older than Evelyn expected, mid-60s, silver-haired, impeccably dressed in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than her car. He looked like someone's distinguished grandfather, not a man who sent threatening messages and made people disappear. His eyes found Evelyn immediately. "Miss Carter, we finally meet in person."
His voice was the same smooth tone from the phone. "You're braver than I anticipated." "Or stupider," she said before she could stop herself. Moretti laughed, a genuine sound. "I like her, Dominic. She's got spine." "Let's skip the pleasantries," Dominic said coldly. "You wanted a meeting. We're here. Talk." They sat at opposite ends of a long table. Moretti's associates flanked him. Marco and Vincent flanked Dominic, with Evelyn positioned carefully between them, protected but present. David remained standing by the door, silent and watchful. Moretti folded his hands on the table. "I'll be direct. I want what we discussed. Partnership in your restaurant holdings. Access to your distribution networks. A legitimate business relationship that benefits both families." "And I'm offering you something better," Dominic replied. "Access without ownership. Introductions without partnership. Legitimacy without you having to buy your way in." Moretti's eyes narrowed. "Explain." Dominic slid a folder across the table. "You want respect, status, to be seen as more than muscle and old grudges. I can give you that. Introductions to my business associates. Invitations to the right events. My recommendation when opportunities arise. You become part of the ecosystem without me having to surrender control of my operations." That's not what we discussed. What we discussed was unsustainable. You wanted businesses I've spent 10 years legitimizing. I'm offering you the result without the risk. Dominic leaned forward slightly. "Think about it. Partnership means shared liability. If one of my restaurants gets investigated, you're implicated. If I have permit issues, they become your issues. But if you're simply an associate I recommend for other ventures, you get the benefits without the exposure." Moretti opened the folder, scanning the documents inside. His expression remained neutral, but Evelyn could see the calculation happening behind his eyes. "You're asking me to trust that you'll actually follow through," Moretti said finally. "That these introductions will be genuine and not just lip service. I'm offering you a contract, legally binding commitments to specific introductions over the next 12 months. You'll have access to the Castellano network, the Singapore investors, 3 separate real estate development groups I work with, all contingent on you pulling back your pressure tactics and leaving Miss Carter alone. And if the introductions don't pan out, then we renegotiate. But I'm betting they will. These are legitimate opportunities, Moretti, the kind that actually build wealth instead of just moving dirty money around." Dominic's voice was steady. "You want to be more than your father was. This is how you do it." The room went silent. Moretti studied the papers, then looked up at Dominic with something like respect. "You've done your homework, bringing up my father, knowing exactly what I want. I make it my business to know my opponents. We don't have to be opponents. Then accept the offer, and we won't be." Moretti set down the folder and leaned back. "What about the threats? The messages to Miss Carter? They stop, immediately, permanently. And if anyone connected to you makes contact with her again, this deal is void and we handle things differently." The threat in Dominic's voice was unmistakable. "Define differently." "You really want me to?" Dominic's smile was cold. "I've been patient, Moretti, civilized, but I'm still a Russo. Push me far enough and you'll remember why that name meant something before we went legitimate." The temperature in the room dropped. Even Moretti's associates shifted uncomfortably. But Moretti himself just studied Dominic with those calculating eyes. "There's the man I've been waiting to meet," he said quietly. "I was beginning to think you'd gone soft. Nice to know the edge is still there." He glanced at Evelyn. "She's worth protecting. I respect that. Then we have a deal?" Moretti was quiet for a long moment. Then he looked at his cousin Luca, who nodded almost imperceptibly. "We have a deal, pending legal review of the specific terms." He gestured to the folder. "But the framework is acceptable. You deliver on these introductions, I pull back my people. Miss Carter is off limits. We coexist peacefully." Dominic didn't relax. "I want it in writing, today, before you leave this room. Eager. Thorough." Dominic nodded to David, who immediately pulled out a laptop and began drafting. "We'll have preliminary terms ready in 30 minutes. You sign them, I sign them, and we're done." The next half hour was a blur of legal language and negotiations over specific wording. Evelyn sat quietly, watching Dominic work,
The way he caught every loophole, anticipated every angle, refused to give an inch more than necessary. This was the businessman she'd seen for a year, but now she understood the full picture. He wasn't just good at this. He was exceptional. Ruthless in his precision, uncompromising in his standards, and absolutely unwilling to be outmaneuvered. Marco leaned over at one point and whispered to her, "You're seeing why he's survived this long. He doesn't just play the game. He rewrites the rules." She nodded, unable to look away from Dominic as he negotiated clause after clause, turning what could have been a surrender into something that somehow gave him more power than he'd started with. Finally, David printed 2 copies of the agreement. Both men read through them carefully, making minor edits, then signed. Moretti stood, extending his hand across the table. "Pleasure doing business with you, Russo. I look forward to a profitable partnership." Dominic shook his hand, grip firm.
"Don't make me regret this." "I could say the same to you." Moretti's gaze shifted to Evelyn. "Miss Carter, enjoy your freedom. You've earned it." Then he left, his associates following, and the room seemed to exhale collectively. The moment the door closed, Dominic turned to her. "Are you okay?" "I'm fine. Are you?" "Getting there." He pulled her into his arms, and she felt the tension finally start to drain from his body. "It's done. Actually done." Marco clapped him on the shoulder. "That was masterful. You just turned a threat into a business opportunity and made Moretti think it was his idea." "It was Evelyn's idea," Dominic corrected. "She's the one who suggested giving him status instead of control." "Smart and pretty. No wonder you're keeping her." Marco grinned at Evelyn. "Welcome to the family officially. You just survived your first Russo negotiation." "Is it always like that?" she asked. "That was actually pretty tame. You should see what happens when Uncle Sal gets involved." Marco's phone buzzed. "Speaking of, he's calling. Probably heard what happened already. I should—" He gestured to the door. "I'll handle Sal. You two celebrate." He left, David following with a brief nod. Vincent remained posted by the door, giving them privacy but staying alert. Dominic cupped Evelyn's face in his hands. "You were incredible, sitting there, not flinching when Moretti tried to intimidate you. I've never been prouder." "I was terrified." "You didn't show it. That's what matters." He kissed her softly. "It's over. You're safe. We can actually have a normal life now." Define normal. Dinner without bodyguards, sleeping without checking the locks 3 times, going to work without wondering if someone's watching you. He smiled. "Boring. Safe. Everything I wanted to give you." She pulled him down for another kiss, deeper this time. Relief and love and desperate joy all tangled together. When they broke apart, both breathless, she rested her forehead against his. "What happens now?" she whispered. "Now we go home. Order too much takeout. Watch terrible movies. Be completely boring and domestic." He stroked her hair. "And tomorrow we start figuring out what our actual life looks like. Together. Without all the drama." "I don't know if I remember how to be boring." "We'll learn together." Vincent cleared his throat diplomatically. "We should move. Moretti's people might still be in the building." Dominic nodded, but he didn't let go of Evelyn's hand as they left the conference room and headed to the elevator. The ride down was quiet, peaceful in a way nothing had been for days. When they stepped out into the lobby, sunlight streamed through the tall windows, and Evelyn felt like she could breathe properly for the first time in a week. "I'm going back to work Monday," she said as they walked to the car. "As my assistant? That's my job. We're going to have to tell HR about us. Make it official so there's no conflict of interest accusations." She stopped walking, turned to face him. "Are you sure? Once it's official, everyone will know. Your business partners, your family, everyone." "Good." He pulled her close, right there in the middle of the hotel lobby, with Vincent watching and strangers passing by. "I'm done hiding you, done pretending you're just my assistant. You're the woman I love, the person I choose, and I want everyone to know it. People will talk. Let them." He kissed her, slow and thorough, and she didn't care who was watching. "I spent a year being professional and distant and miserable. I'm not wasting another day." They made it back to his apartment, and for the first time in what felt like forever, it was just them. No bodyguards stationed outside, no threats hanging over their heads, no meetings or negotiations or danger.
Just Evelyn and Dominic, curled up on his couch with Chinese food and a movie neither of them paid attention to because they couldn't stop talking. "When did you know," she asked at one point, "that you wanted this, us?" He thought about it. "The first week. You corrected me on something. I don't even remember what. And you did it so calmly, like you weren't afraid of me at all. And I realized I wanted someone who saw me as a person, not a name or a threat." He smiled. "What about you?" Day 3. You were on the phone with a vendor who was trying to cheat you, and you didn't yell or threaten. You just laid out exactly how you knew they were lying and what the consequences would be if they didn't fix it. Clinical, controlled, terrifying. She laughed. "I thought, this man is dangerous and brilliant, and I'm in so much trouble. And yet you stayed. I couldn't leave. I kept telling myself it was just a job, just a paycheck, but..." She shook her head. "I was lying to myself from the beginning." He set aside his food and pulled her fully into his lap. "I'm glad you're a bad liar. I'm an excellent liar. I convinced you for 11 months that I felt nothing." "You didn't convince me of anything. I knew." He kissed her neck. "I just didn't think I could have you." "You can. You do." She tilted her head back, giving him better access. "What are we going to tell people on Monday?" "The truth. That we're together. That it's serious. That anyone who has a problem with it can take it up with me directly. Your Uncle Sal is going to have opinions." "Sal always has opinions. I stopped caring about them years ago." He pulled back to look at her. "The only opinion that matters is yours. Are you okay with this? Going public? Dealing with whatever comes?" She thought about it, about the whispers that would follow, the questions, the judgment, the way some people would see her as someone who slept her way to the top. Never mind that she'd been essential to Dominic's operations long before they got involved. But she also thought about what she'd gain. The ability to hold his hand in public, to be acknowledged as his partner, not just his assistant, to build a life with him without hiding. "I'm okay with it," she said. "More than okay. I want people to know." "Even though it'll be complicated?" "Everything about us is complicated. Might as well own it." He grinned, a real smile, unguarded and happy. "When did you get so brave?" "When I sent you a drunk text and you actually showed up. Everything after that was just momentum." They stayed up late talking about everything and nothing, about the restructuring plan for his businesses, about her potentially taking on more responsibility now that their relationship was public, about vacations they wanted to take and restaurants they needed to try and whether they should get a dog. Normal conversation, normal dreams, the kind of future planning that came with commitment and trust and love that had survived being tested. At some point, they migrated to his bedroom, but instead of the desperate urgency of previous nights, everything was slow and sweet. Dominic took his time, mapping her body like he had all the time in the world, and maybe now he did. No threats, no deadlines, just them. "I love you," he murmured against her skin, "in case I haven't said it enough." "You can say it more. I love you." Kiss. "I love you." Another kiss. "I'm completely, hopelessly in love with you, Evelyn Carter, and I plan to spend the foreseeable future proving it." She pulled him up to kiss him properly. "Good. Because I love you too. Hopelessly, completely, even though you're bossy and overprotective and way too good at negotiating. Mom, especially because I'm good at negotiating. I negotiated my way into your life. No, I texted you, 'come get me,' while drunk. You just had the good sense to listen." He laughed against her mouth. "Best decision I ever made." They fell asleep tangled together, and Evelyn dreamed of a future that felt possible now. Not perfect. Nothing with Dominic would ever be simple or safe or easy. But real. Solid. Worth fighting for. Monday arrived with a mixture of nerves and determination. Evelyn dressed carefully in a charcoal dress and heels, professional but confident. Dominic wore one of his perfectly tailored suits, but he'd abandoned the tie, a small rebellion that made her smile. They arrived at the office together. Separately would have been pointless now. Everyone would know by lunch anyway. The moment they stepped off the elevator, conversation in the hallway stopped. Eyes tracked them as they walked to Dominic's office suite, together but not touching, professional distance maintained out of habit. When they reached Evelyn's desk, Dominic paused. Staff meeting, conference room, 10 minutes, he said, loud enough for the nearby cubicles to hear. Full department. Then he walked into his office, and Evelyn sat at her desk like it was any other Monday, except her heart was pounding and her hands were shaking slightly as she logged into her computer. Her phone buzzed, a text from Shay. Shay. You're back! Does this mean the mobster drama is over? Evelyn. It's handled, and he's not a mobster. Shay. Sure. And I'm the Queen of England. Call me later with details. At 9:58, Dominic emerged. Ready? She nodded and followed him to the conference room. Their entire department was already there. 20 people who ran various aspects of Russo Industries operations. All of them looked curious and slightly nervous. Dominic waited until everyone was seated, then closed the door. I'm making this announcement once, he said without preamble. Evelyn Carter and I are in a relationship. It's serious. It's not going anywhere. HR has been notified and approved the necessary paperwork to ensure there's no conflict of interest. She'll continue as my assistant, but we're also exploring expanded responsibilities for her in other areas of the business. Silence. Absolute silence. Anyone have questions or concerns, you can bring them to me directly. Otherwise, this doesn't change anything about how we operate. We're all professionals. I expect everyone to act like it. He glanced around the room. Clear? A chorus of nods. Someone in the back, Jennifer from accounting, raised her hand tentatively. Yes? Dominic said. Congratulations. You two make a great team. A few people murmured agreement. The tension in the room eased slightly. Thank you, Dominic said. Now, if we're done with personal announcements, let's talk about the Castellano deal. It's finalized. Contracts were signed Friday. We're moving forward with the expansion plan, which means everyone in this room needs to be prepared for increased workflow over the next quarter. Just like that, he shifted into business mode, and the meeting proceeded like normal. Evelyn took notes, answered questions when asked, and tried not to think about the fact that 20 people now knew her deepest secret. When the meeting ended, several colleagues stopped her on the way out. I'm happy for you, said Michael from operations. Seriously, you've been running this place for a year. Nice to see you getting credit for it. We all knew something was going on, Jennifer added with a smile. The way he looks at you when he thinks no one's watching, dead giveaway. Evelyn laughed, surprised and relieved. I thought we were subtle. You were terrible at subtle, but we're all rooting for you anyway. The day proceeded with surprising normalcy. There were whispers, sure, and a few pointed looks, but mostly people went about their work like nothing had changed, maybe because functionally nothing had. Evelyn still managed Dominic's schedule, still fielded his calls, still kept his world organized. The only difference was that now, when he called her into his office, she could close the door and kiss him without fear of discovery. How are you doing? He asked at lunch, pulling her onto his lap even though they probably shouldn't in the office. Better than expected. I think people are more relieved than scandalized. They should be. You make my life functional. If you left, this place would collapse in a week. Flattery will get you everywhere. I'm counting on it. He kissed her neck. Dinner tonight? Actual restaurant? Public outing as a couple? Are you asking me on a date, Mr. Russo? I'm telling you we're going on a date, Miss Carter. 7 o'clock. Wear something that makes me forget how to form sentences. She laughed and kissed him. Deal. That night, they went to an upscale Italian restaurant in the Gold Coast, the kind of place where people noticed who was dining together. Dominic had requested a semi-private corner table, but he didn't hide. He held her hand across the table, ordered wine, talked about everything except work. Halfway through dinner, a man in an expensive suit stopped by their table. Dominic Russo. I heard you were seeing someone. Didn't believe it until now. The man's eyes shifted to Evelyn with barely concealed interest. Lucky man. Very lucky, Dominic agreed, voice cool. Richard, this is Evelyn Carter. Evelyn, Richard Lawson. We went to college together. Pleasure, Richard said, extending his hand. Evelyn shook it briefly. So how did you two meet? She works for me, Dominic said before Evelyn could answer. Has for over a year. Best assistant I've ever had. And yes, before you ask, HR approved everything. It's all above board. Richard's smile was knowing. I'm sure it is. Well, congratulations. You've caught the uncatchable Dominic Russo. That's quite an accomplishment. See, when Richard left, Evelyn raised an eyebrow. He seemed lovely. He's an ass, always has been. Dominic took a sip of wine. But word will spread now. By tomorrow, everyone in our social circle will know I'm off the market. Does that bother you? Not even a little. He reached for her hand. I want people to know. Want them to see that I chose you, that you chose me back. Even though it'll bring attention we don't want? We'll handle it, together. He smiled. Besides, we just survived threats from the Moretti family. Society gossip seems manageable in comparison. She laughed and squeezed his hand. Fair point. The weeks that followed settled into a new rhythm. Evelyn worked alongside Dominic during the day, managing his schedule and operations with the same precision as before. But now she also attended meetings as his partner, not just his assistant, offered opinions that were taken seriously, made decisions that actually mattered. At night, they went home together, sometimes to his place, sometimes to hers, gradually blending their lives. She kept clothes at his apartment. He kept a toothbrush at hers. Small domestic steps that added up to something bigger. Marco became a regular presence, stopping by with food or stories or unsolicited advice. Evelyn grew to appreciate his irreverent humor, the way he could make Dominic laugh when stress got too heavy. You're good for him, Marco told her one evening when Dominic was on a call. I haven't seen him this relaxed in years. Maybe ever. He's good for me too. Yeah, but you were probably fine before. He was a mess. Functional, but a mess. Marco smiled. Thanks for fixing him. I didn't fix anything. I just showed up. Sometimes that's all it takes. 3 months after the Moretti situation resolved, Dominic took Evelyn to meet his Uncle Sal. She'd been dreading it. Everything she'd heard about Sal suggested he was the family member most connected to the old ways. The one who'd wanted Dominic to handle Moretti with violence instead of negotiation. Sal's office was in a restaurant in Little Italy, one of the original Russo holdings, untouched by Dominic's legitimization efforts. The decor was old school, all dark wood and red leather, and the men sitting at the bar looked like they'd stepped out of a different era. Relax, Dominic murmured as they walked in. He's not going to bite you, probably. That's not reassuring. Sal was older than she expected, 70, maybe older, with silver hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. He stood when they approached, extending a hand to Dominic first, then to Evelyn. So this is the girl who's got my nephew acting like a civilian. His voice was gravelly, amused. Pretty, smart, from what I hear. You know what you signed up for? I'm learning, Evelyn said carefully. She knows, Dominic interjected, and she's staying anyway. Sal studied her for a long moment, then nodded. Good. The Russo men need strong women. My Maria, rest her soul, kept me in line for 40 years. Sounds like you're doing the same for this one. He clapped Dominic on the shoulder. You did good with the Moretti situation. Turned a threat into an asset. Your father would have just had him killed, but your way. Smarter, cleaner. Thank you. Don't thank me. I'm still not convinced going legitimate is the right move. But, he glanced at Evelyn, I can see why you want to. She's not going to stick around if you're running the family business the old way. No, Evelyn agreed. I'm not. Sal laughed, a rough, genuine sound. I like her. She's got spine. Don't screw this up, Dominic. I don't plan to. They had dinner with Sal, and to Evelyn's surprise, it was almost pleasant. He told stories about Dominic's father, about the old days, about how the family had built their empire. Some of it was alarming. Most of it was fascinating. All of it gave her context for the man she loved. When they left, Dominic was quiet. That went better than expected, she said. He liked you. That doesn't happen often. He pulled her close as they walked to the car. You charmed Uncle Sal. I'm officially impressed. I didn't charm anyone. I was just honest. Exactly. He respects honesty. Dominic kissed her temple. You're part of the family now, whether you like it or not. I think I like it. Good, because you're stuck with us. 6 months after that first impulsive text, Evelyn stood in Dominic's apartment, their apartment now, officially, since she'd moved in the month before, and watched the sun set over Chicago. The city sprawled below them, glittering and alive, and she felt settled in a way she'd never experienced before. Dominic came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. "How different my life is now. How scared I was that night at Romano's. How sure I was that texting you would ruin everything. It did ruin everything, in the best possible way." He turned her to face him. "I was half dead before you, going through the motions, building an empire because I didn't know what else to do. And then you sent me 2 words, and everything changed. Come get me." "Best text I've ever received," he smiled. "I love you, Evelyn. More than I thought I could love anyone. More than is probably smart or reasonable. I love you too, even though you're still my boss and that's a walking HR violation." About that, he pulled a small box from his pocket and her heart stopped. "I talked to the board about restructuring my role, bringing in a CEO to handle day-to-day operations so I can focus on strategic planning. Dominic, which means you wouldn't technically be my assistant anymore. You'd be operations director, reporting to the new CEO, not to me." He opened the box, revealing a ring that caught the dying sunlight. "Which means I can ask you this without it being completely inappropriate. Marry me." She stared at the ring, then at him, and her eyes filled with tears. "That's not a question," she managed. "Marry me?" He smiled, nervous now. "Please? Because I can't imagine my life without you in it. Can't imagine making decisions without your input, or coming home to an empty apartment, or facing the next crisis without you beside me." "Yes." The word came out choked. "Yes, of course, yes." He slid the ring onto her finger, perfect fit, because of course he'd gotten her size somehow, and kissed her like she was oxygen, and he'd been drowning. When they broke apart, both laughing and crying, she looked at the ring on her hand and felt the weight of what they'd built together. Not perfect. Never perfect. But real and solid and worth every risk they'd taken. "When did you plan this?" she asked. "The day after we resolved the Moretti situation. I knew then I wanted forever with you. Just took me a while to figure out the logistics." He pulled her close. "Marco helped pick the ring, so if you hate it, blame him." "I love it. I love you. I love that you restructured your entire company so you could propose. I'd restructure the entire world if it meant keeping you." They stood there as the sun finished setting, the city lighting up around them, and Evelyn thought about the journey that had brought them here. From invisible assistant to essential partner, from hiding feelings to declaring them publicly, from danger and threats to safety and commitment. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now we plan a wedding, build our life, figure out the next chapter together." He kissed her softly. "And maybe, eventually, we start that foundation we talked about, the one that helps people caught in impossible situations. Give them options we didn't have. Using your family's resources for good. Using our resources. Because it's all ours now. Everything I have, everything I am, it's yours too." She pulled him down for another kiss, pouring every ounce of love and gratitude and fierce joy into it. When they broke apart, she rested her forehead against his. "I can't believe this started with a drunk text." "Best risk you ever took." "Best decision I ever made," she corrected. "Asking you to come get me. I'll always come for you, no matter what, no matter where." He held her tighter. "That's the promise. From now until forever." And standing there in their apartment, with the ring on her finger and his arms around her and the whole city spreading out below them, Evelyn believed him. She'd spent so long being invisible, being careful, being safe. But then she dared to be seen, dared to ask for what she wanted, dared to step into the light and risk everything for the chance at something real. And it had been terrifying and dangerous and completely worth it. Because when she'd finally found the courage to say, "Come get me," Dominic Russo hadn't hesitated. He'd come. And he'd never stopped coming for her since. That was the thing about love. Real love. The kind that survived threats and danger and impossible odds. It didn't make life easier or safer or simpler, but it made everything else worth fighting for. And as Evelyn stood in Dominic's arms, wearing his ring and building their future, she knew she'd fight for this until her last breath. Because some love stories started with a whisper. But theirs? Theirs had started with a text, a prayer, and 2 words that changed everything. "Come get me." And he had.